Our first story comes from someone who's starting to question everything about their relationship based on something that seems small but feels huge. Here, my girlfriend deletes photos of us from social media. I'm 24, she's 22, and we've been together for about 8 months now. Things have been really good between us, or at least I thought they were, until I started noticing something weird with her Instagram and Facebook posts. At first I didn't think much of it. She posts a lot of selfies and pictures with friends, which is totally normal. But then I realised that every single photo she posts of the two of us together gets deleted within a few days. Like, she'll post a cute picture of us at dinner or from a weekend trip, and I'll see it, maybe comment on it or share it to my story. But then, a couple days later, it's just gone. I started paying closer attention, and it's literally every single couple photo. The only pictures that stay up permanently are her solo shots, pictures with her girlfriends, or group photos where I'm barely visible in the background. Any photo where it's clearly the two of us as a couple gets removed. When I first noticed this pattern, I thought maybe she was just being selective about her feed aesthetic or something. She's really into photography and cares a lot about how her profile looks. But then I realised she keeps up photos with her ex-boyfriend from like 2 years ago. Not recent ones, but there are still a few old posts from when they were together that she never bothered to delete. So she'll remove a photo of us from last weekend, but there's still a picture of her and her ex at some concert from 2022 just sitting there in her feed. That's when I started to feel like something was really off. I decided to bring it up casually one evening when we were hanging out at her apartment. I asked her why she deletes our photos, trying to keep it light and not accusatory. She got immediately defensive and said she wasn't deleting anything, that maybe I was imagining it or maybe the photos weren't posting properly. But I know what I saw. I have screenshots of some of the posts because I shared them to my story before they disappeared. When I showed her the evidence, she changed her story and said she just didn't like how she looked in those particular photos and decided to take them down. I asked why she doesn't do the same thing with other photos where she doesn't look her best, and she said it was different somehow. She couldn't really explain how it was different, just that couple photos made her feel more self-conscious. The whole conversation felt really weird and evasive. She kept changing her explanation and getting more frustrated that I was asking about it. Finally, she said I was being paranoid and controlling, and that it was just social media. So why did it matter so much? But here's the thing that really bothers me. We spend a lot of time together. We get along great, and when we're alone, everything feels perfect. But when we're out in public or around other people, I sometimes notice her being less affectionate or acting more like we're just friends hanging out. I started wondering if maybe she's embarrassed about our relationship for some reason, or if she's trying to appear single online. Maybe she's keeping her options open or doesn't want certain people to know she's in a relationship. Her friends all know about me and seem to like me. Her family knows we're dating, but for some reason, she doesn't want any permanent evidence of our relationship on her social media profiles. I've been trying to figure out if this is just about her being private or if there's something deeper going on. Maybe she's not as serious about our relationship as I am. Maybe she's not ready to be publicly committed to someone. The worst part is that now I'm second-guessing everything. When she posts a cute selfie, I wonder if she's trying to attract attention from other guys. When she's texting during our dates, I wonder if she's talking to someone else. I never used to be a jealous or suspicious person, but this whole thing has made me feel really insecure. I love her and I want to make this work, but I also don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's ashamed of being with me or who's keeping me as some kind of secret. I don't need her to post about us constantly, but the fact that she actively removes evidence of our relationship feels really hurtful. I'm not sure if I should push the conversation further or just let it go. Maybe I'm making a big deal out of nothing, but it really doesn't feel like nothing to me. That story hits different because social media has become such a weird measure of relationship validation these days. The fact that she keeps photos with her ex but deletes current ones with her boyfriend is definitely a red flag. It sounds like she might be keeping her options open or genuinely isn't ready to be seen as taken. Either way, That level of secrecy would make anyone question where they stand in the relationship. Moving on to our next story, which deals with a completely different kind of relationship frustration. My boyfriend makes fun of my food choices. I'm Kelly, 26 years old, and I've been with my boyfriend Marcus for about a year and a half. This might sound like a small issue, but it's starting to really get to me, and I'm not sure how to handle it anymore. Marcus and I have pretty different tastes when it comes to food. He's very much a meat and potatoes kind of guy, likes straightforward dishes, doesn't really enjoy trying new things. I, on the other hand, love experimenting with different cuisines and flavours. I'm not vegetarian, but I do enjoy plant-based meals sometimes, and I like spicy food, unusual combinations, and trying restaurants that serve foods from different cultures. The problem is that every single time we go out to eat, or even when I'm cooking at home, Marcus feels the need to comment on what I'm eating, and not in a curious or supportive way, but in a way that makes me feel like my preferences are weird or gross. Last week we went to this Thai restaurant that had gotten great reviews. I ordered pad Thai with tofu and extra vegetables, something I've ordered dozens of times before and really enjoy. Marcus looked at my plate when it arrived and said, "God, Kelly, that looks like something you'd feed to a rabbit. How can you eat that weird rubbery stuff?" referring to the tofu. He does this constantly. If I order a salad, he'll make comments about how I'm eating grass or ask if I'm on some kind of diet. If I get something with beans or lentils, he'll wrinkle his nose and say it looks like health food in this disgusted tone. If I order anything vegetarian, he acts like I'm deliberately trying to be difficult or pretentious. The worst part is that he does this in front of other people. When we're out with friends or his family, he'll make these jokes about my weird food phases or my rabbit food. Last month at his cousin's birthday dinner, I ordered a Mediterranean bowl with quinoa and roasted vegetables. Marcus announced to the entire table that I was going through my hippie food phase and that he was embarrassed to be seen with someone who eats birdseed. Everyone laughed, but I felt completely humiliated. It's not a phase, these are just foods I genuinely enjoy. I don't make fun of him for ordering fries at the same burger place every time we go out. So I don't understand why my choices are fair game for jokes. I've tried talking to him about it multiple times. I've explained that his comments hurt my feelings and make me self-conscious about eating around him. He always responds by saying he's just joking and that I'm being too sensitive. He says he doesn't understand why I take it so personally when he's just teasing, but it doesn't feel like harmless teasing anymore. I've started second-guessing my food choices when we're together. Sometimes I'll order something more normal just to avoid his comments, even if it's not what I actually want to eat. I've stopped suggesting restaurants that serve the kind of food I like because I know he'll complain the entire time. The thing is, I never ask him to eat what I'm eating. I never criticize his food choices or try to pressure him into trying new things. When he orders his usual steak and potatoes, I don't say anything negative about it. I respect that he has different preferences than I do, but he seems to think that my preferences are fair game for mockery. He acts like choosing to eat vegetables or trying ethnic food is some kind of character flaw that he needs to point out every single time. It's gotten to the point where I don't even enjoy going out to eat with him anymore, which is sad because we used to love trying new restaurants together. Now I feel like I have to choose between eating what I want and dealing with his comments, or eating what he approves of and feeling resentful about it. I'm starting to wonder if this is really about food, or if it's about something deeper. Maybe he feels threatened when I make choices that are different from his, or maybe he's trying to control what I do in some subtle way, or maybe he really just thinks he's being funny and doesn't realise how much it bothers me. Either way, I'm getting tired of feeling judged and mocked for something as basic as what I choose to put in my own body. Food is supposed to be enjoyable, but he's making it stressful and uncomfortable. This story really shows how something that seems minor on the surface can actually reveal deeper issues about respect and compatibility. Making fun of your partner's food choices isn't just harmless teasing when it happens constantly and makes them feel bad about themselves. It sounds like Marcus either doesn't understand or doesn't care about how his comments affect Kelly. The fact that he does it publicly makes it even worse because he's essentially inviting other people to join in on mocking her preferences. Let's move to another story about a different kind of relationship challenge that many couples face. My husband plays video games all night. I'm 29, been married to my husband James for 3 years, and we don't have kids yet. This issue has been building up for months, and I'm finally at the point where I need to figure out what to do about it. James has always been into gaming. When we first started dating, I thought it was kind of cute that he was passionate about something, and I didn't mind that he'd spend a few hours on weekends playing with his friends online. He'd usually play for a couple hours on Saturday afternoons or Sunday mornings, and it never felt like it was taking away from our time together. But over the past year, especially since we got married and moved in together, his gaming schedule has completely taken over our evenings and weekends. He comes home from work around 6, we'll eat dinner together, and then by 8 o'clock, he's setting up his headset and logging on to play with his friends. He'll play until 2 or 3 in the morning, sometimes later. This happens every single weeknight. I'll be in the living room watching TV by myself, or reading, or just scrolling on my phone, while he's in the spare bedroom that he's turned into his gaming setup, yelling into his headset and completely absorbed in whatever game he's playing. On weekends, it's even worse. He'll wake up, have coffee, and then start gaming by 10 or 11 in the morning. He'll play for hours, maybe take a break for lunch, then go right back to it. Some Saturdays I barely see him, except for meals. I've tried to be understanding because I know gaming is his way of staying connected with his college friends, who live in different states now. They all have jobs and responsibilities, so evening gaming sessions are their time to catch up and hang out virtually. I get that, and I don't want to be the wife who makes him give up his friendships. But I'm starting to feel really lonely in my own marriage. We barely spend any quality time together anymore. When we do watch a movie or go out to dinner, he seems distracted and keeps checking his phone to see if his friends are online yet. I've brought this up several times, trying to suggest that maybe we could designate certain nights as non-gaming nights, or that he could limit his sessions to a few hours instead of playing until the early morning. His response is always that he works hard all week, and gaming is how he relaxes and unwinds. He says I can join him if I want, that there are games we could play together, but honestly, I'm not really interested in spending 4 hours every night playing video games. I'd rather talk, or watch something together, or go for walks, or just hang out without screens. The late-night gaming is also affecting other aspects of our relationship. He's often tired and grumpy in the mornings because he's been up so late. He'll sleep in on weekends until noon because he was gaming until 3 a.m. Our sleep schedules are completely out of sync now. It's also affecting our intimacy. By the time he's done gaming and comes to bed, I'm either already asleep or too tired to be interested in connecting physically. And when he does come to bed, he's wired from hours of intense gaming, so he'll toss and turn for a while before falling asleep. I feel like I'm competing with his Xbox for his attention, and I'm losing. It's gotten to the point where I look forward to his work trips, because at least then I know he's not choosing gaming over spending time with me. Last week I suggested that we plan a weekend getaway, just the two of us, no gaming allowed. He agreed, but then started asking if the hotel would have good Wi-Fi and whether he could bring his portable setup, just in case there's downtime. Even when we're planning time together, he's thinking about gaming. I love my husband, and I know he loves me, but I feel like we're becoming roommates instead of partners. We're living parallel lives in the same house, instead of actually sharing our lives together. I don't want to be controlling or take away something he enjoys, but I also don't think it's unreasonable to want to spend quality time with my own husband. I just don't know how to get through to him that this is becoming a real problem for our marriage. This one really highlights how hobbies can become relationship killers when they take over someone's entire life. Gaming until 3 a.m. every single night isn't just a casual hobby anymore, it's basically a second job that's crowding out everything else, including the marriage. The fact that he can't even go on a weekend getaway without thinking about bringing his gaming setup shows how dependent he's become on it. This sounds less like relaxation and more like an addiction that's slowly destroying their connection as a couple. Our next story deals with an issue that can make people feel stuck and uncertain about their future. My partner refuses to talk about the future. I've been with my partner for 3 years now, and I'm starting to feel really frustrated about our inability to have meaningful conversations about where our relationship is heading. We're both in our late 20s, we've been living together for about a year and a half, and by most measures, we have a really good relationship. We get along well, we have similar interests, we rarely fight, and I genuinely enjoy spending time with them. But whenever I try to bring up topics about our future together, the conversation gets shut down immediately. I'm not talking about putting pressure on them to propose or anything dramatic like that. I'm talking about basic conversations about what we both want out of life and whether we're on the same page about major life decisions. For example, I've tried to bring up the topic of kids multiple times, not because I'm ready to start trying right now, but because I think it's important for couples to know if they're compatible on something that major. Every time I ask if they want children someday, or how they feel about parenting, they change the subject or say something like, "We don't need to worry about that right now." Same thing happens when I bring up marriage. I'm not demanding a proposal, but I think it's reasonable to discuss whether marriage is something we both see in our futures and what that might look like for us. Again, the response is always that we're fine how we are and don't need to complicate things by thinking too far ahead. It's not just the big life decisions either. I can't even get them to commit to plans more than a few weeks out. If I suggest buying tickets to a concert that's 3 months away, or planning a vacation for next year, they get uncomfortable and say they don't like making plans so far in advance. This is starting to make me feel like I'm in a relationship with no direction or purpose. I feel like we're just drifting along without any shared goals or vision for what we're building together. It makes me question whether they're as invested in this relationship as I am. I've tried explaining that I'm not trying to rush them into anything. I just want to understand what they're thinking about and whether we want the same things. But they always frame these conversations as me being pushy or trying to force them into commitments they're not ready for. The thing is, I'm not getting any younger, and neither are they. If we fundamentally want different things out of life, isn't it better to figure that out sooner rather than later? If they never want to get married and I do, or if they don't want kids and I do, then we're both wasting time that we could be spending finding more compatible partners. I'm starting to wonder if their refusal to talk about the future is actually an answer in itself. Maybe they don't see a long-term future with me and just don't want to hurt my feelings by saying so directly. Or maybe they're keeping their options open and don't want to make any commitments that might limit their choices later. Either way, I'm feeling more and more like I'm in a relationship that's going nowhere, and I don't know how much longer I can handle the uncertainty. The avoidance of future planning after 3 years together is honestly concerning because it suggests either a fear of commitment or a lack of serious intent about the relationship. When someone consistently deflects conversations about basic life goals and values, it usually means they either don't see you as their long-term person or they're not ready for the kind of adult relationship that involves making plans and building something together. After 3 years, these conversations shouldn't feel pushy or premature anymore. Let's dive into our next story, which deals with a different kind of boundary issue in a relationship that's causing tension. My girlfriend borrows my clothes without asking. I'm Sarah, 24, and I've been dating my girlfriend Emma for about 7 months now. Overall, our relationship is really good, but there's this one issue that's starting to drive me absolutely crazy, and I'm not sure if I'm being reasonable or if I'm overreacting. Emma has gotten into the habit of borrowing my clothes without asking first. At the beginning of our relationship, I didn't mind at all. I actually thought it was kind of sweet when she'd wear one of my hoodies or steal a t-shirt to sleep in. It felt intimate and coupley, and I liked seeing her in my clothes. But over the past few months, it's gotten completely out of hand. She'll go into my closet and take whatever she wants, without even mentioning it to me. I'll be getting dressed for work and realise that the shirt I was planning to wear is gone, or I'll be looking for a specific jacket and find out she wore it somewhere. The bigger problem is that she's not taking good care of my stuff when she borrows it. Last month, she took my favourite white button-down shirt to wear to some event with her friends. When she returned it, there was a huge red wine stain right down the front. She apologised and said she'd tried to get it out, but the stain was clearly set and the shirt was basically ruined. Another time, she borrowed my leather jacket and somehow managed to tear a hole in the lining. She said it must have caught on something, but she didn't offer to get it repaired or replace it. She just handed it back to me and said, "Sorry about that," like it was no big deal. The most frustrating incident happened 2 weeks ago. She took my really nice wool sweater, the one my mum gave me for Christmas that cost like $150. I didn't even know she had borrowed it until I saw her wearing it in photos on her Instagram story. She was at some outdoor festival, and by the time she gave it back to me, it smelled like cigarette smoke and had grass stains on the sleeves. When I asked her about it, she said she thought I wouldn't mind since I'd let her borrow things before. But there's a huge difference between grabbing one of my basic t-shirts and taking my most expensive sweater to wear to a muddy festival without even asking. I've tried talking to her about this several times. I've explained that I don't mind sharing my clothes, but I'd appreciate it if she asked first, especially for nicer pieces or things I might need. She always agrees and says she'll ask next time, but then she keeps doing the same thing. Last week I went to get dressed for a job interview and couldn't find the blazer I was planning to wear. I texted Emma asking if she had it, and she said she'd worn it to work and forgotten to tell me. She offered to drive it over to me, but by then I was already running late and had to wear something else. I'm starting to feel like she doesn't respect my belongings or my boundaries. It's not just about the clothes themselves, it's about the fact that she takes my stuff without asking and then doesn't take care of it properly. Some of these items have sentimental value or were expensive purchases that I saved up for. I don't want to be controlling or make a huge deal out of something that might seem minor, but it's really starting to bother me. I feel like I can't count on having access to my own clothes because I never know what she might have taken. Emma says I'm being uptight and that couples are supposed to share everything. She points out that I can borrow her clothes anytime I want. But the thing is, I always ask first, and I'm careful with her things when I do borrow them. I'm not sure how to handle this without seeming petty or possessive. I love Emma, and I want to make this work, but I need to feel like my stuff is safe in my own closet. That story is over. The casual borrowing that turned into property destruction is honestly maddening, especially when someone keeps promising to ask first but never follows through. It's not about being controlling, it's about basic respect for your partner's belongings. The fact that she's ruined expensive items and acts like it's no big deal shows she's not taking responsibility for her actions. Plus, showing up to a job interview without the blazer you plan to wear because your girlfriend took it without telling you is just unacceptable. Moving on to another story about communication issues that are causing serious trust problems. My wife keeps texting her ex's mum. I found something out recently that's been eating at me for weeks, and I'm not sure if I'm overreacting or if I have legitimate reasons to be concerned about this situation. My wife Jessica and I have been married for 4 years. She was in a pretty serious relationship before me with a guy named Tom, and they dated for about 3 years before breaking up. From what she's told me, the breakup was mutual and they just grew apart, nothing dramatic or messy. Jessica always spoke fondly of Tom's family, especially his mother, Carol. She said Carol had been like a second mum to her during their relationship and that she really appreciated how welcoming Tom's whole family had been. I thought that was sweet, and I never had any issue with her maintaining friendly relationships with people who had been important to her. What I didn't realise until recently was just how much contact she still has with Carol. I discovered this completely by accident a few weeks ago when Jessica left her phone on the kitchen counter and it kept buzzing with notifications. I wasn't trying to snoop, but I could see the name Carol popping up repeatedly, so I got curious. When Jessica got back, I asked her casually who Carol was, just in case it was someone from work I should know about. She got this weird look on her face and said it was Tom's mum, and they still texted sometimes. She made it sound like it was occasional, maybe holiday greetings or birthday messages. But over the next few days, I started noticing that Jessica was texting with Carol constantly. She'd be on her phone during dinner, or while we were watching TV, and when I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd often say it was Carol. I began to realise this wasn't occasional contact, this was like daily communication. I finally asked Jessica directly how often she talks to Tom's mum, and she admitted that they text pretty much every day. She said Carol shares updates about her life, her job, her other kids, and Jessica tells her about what we're doing, our travels, even stuff about my family and my job. This made me really uncomfortable for several reasons. First, it feels weird that my wife is sharing details about our private life with her ex-boyfriend's mother. Second, I can't help wondering if information about Jessica, and by extension me, is getting back to Tom through his mum. But the thing that bothers me most is that Jessica was being secretive about it. If this friendship with Carol is totally innocent and above board, why didn't she ever mention how often they communicate? Why did she make it sound like occasional contact when it's actually daily conversations? When I brought up my concerns, Jessica got defensive and said I was being jealous and possessive. She said Carol is like family to her, and that her relationship with Carol has nothing to do with Tom. She pointed out that she's never hidden her phone from me or acted suspicious about her communications. But here's the thing that really got to me. Jessica mentioned that Carol often talks about Tom in these conversations. She'll update Jessica on what Tom is up to, how his career is going, whether he's dating anyone. Jessica says she doesn't ask about Tom specifically, but Carol volunteers the information and Jessica listens politely. So my wife is getting regular updates about her ex-boyfriend's life through his mother, and she's sharing details about our marriage and our life with someone who then presumably shares that information with her ex. That feels really inappropriate to me. I asked Jessica how she would feel if I was texting daily with my ex-girlfriend's mum and getting regular updates about my ex's life. She said that would be different because she trusts me, but that didn't really answer my question. I don't think Jessica is trying to reconnect with Tom or anything like that. I genuinely believe she sees this as a friendship with Carol that's separate from her past relationship. But I can't shake the feeling that maintaining such close contact with your ex's family is crossing some kind of boundary. Jessica has made it clear that she's not willing to cut off contact with Carol, and she thinks I'm being unreasonable for even asking. She says Carol has been a positive influence in her life, and that she's not going to end a meaningful friendship just because I'm insecure. I'm torn because I don't want to be controlling, but I also don't think it's normal or healthy for married people to have daily conversations with their ex's family members. It feels like there's a piece of her past relationship that she's not willing to let go of, and that makes me question her commitment to our marriage. That story is finished. Daily texting with your ex's mum while getting updates about your ex's life is definitely crossing relationship boundaries, even if the intentions are innocent. The secrecy around it makes it worse because if it was truly just a harmless friendship, why downplay how often they communicate? It's essentially keeping one foot in her past relationship through his family, and most partners would find that uncomfortable. The fact that she's sharing intimate details about her current marriage with someone who reports back to her ex is pretty problematic. Let's move to our next story about someone whose relationship humour has gone way too far. My boyfriend won't stop pranking me. I'm Laura, 25 years old, and I've been with my boyfriend Jake for about 2 years. When we first started dating, I loved that he had such a great sense of humour and could make me laugh even when I was having a bad day. But lately, his pranking has gotten completely out of control, and it's starting to affect how I feel about our relationship. It started with small, harmless stuff that was actually pretty funny. He'd hide my keys and leave little clues around the apartment for me to find them, or he'd put googly eyes on everything in the refrigerator to make me laugh when I opened it. Those kinds of pranks were sweet and playful, and they made me feel like we had this fun, light-hearted dynamic. But over the past 6 months, the pranks have escalated to the point where I never know when I'm going to be the target of some elaborate scheme. And they're not always funny anymore. Sometimes they're just annoying, disruptive, or even embarrassing. Last month, Jake thought it would be hilarious to set my alarm clock forward by 2 hours while I was sleeping. I woke up in a panic thinking I was late for work, rushed through my morning routine, and drove to my office in a frenzy, only to find out I was 2 hours early. I had to sit in my car in the parking lot until it was actually time to start work. When I confronted him about it, he laughed and said he thought I'd figure out what time it really was before leaving the house. He seemed genuinely confused that I was upset instead of amused. Another time, he replaced all the photos in my picture frames with pictures of Nicolas Cage. I came home from a long day at work to find Nicolas Cage's face staring at me from every surface in my apartment. It took me an hour to find where he'd hidden all my actual photos and put everything back the way it was. The worst incident happened 2 weeks ago when I was having a really serious conversation with him about some problems I was having with my boss at work. I was genuinely stressed and needed emotional support from my partner. Right in the middle of me explaining how upset I was, Jake started making these weird faces and gestures behind me. I thought maybe he was trying to get my attention or signal something important, and so I turned around to see what he was doing. He had set up his phone to record me talking, and he was making funny faces and hand gestures to try to make me laugh or break character while I was being vulnerable with him. I felt completely humiliated and disrespected. Here I was trying to share something that was really bothering me, and he was treating it like an opportunity for content creation. When I got upset, he said he was just trying to cheer me up and make me feel better about the work situation. But that's the problem. Jake seems to think that every situation, no matter how serious or important, is an opportunity for a prank or a joke. I can't have a meaningful conversation with him without wondering if he's going to turn it into comedy material. He's pranked me during phone calls with my family while I'm trying to study for professional certification exams, and even during intimate moments between us. Nothing feels safe from his need to be constantly entertaining. I've tried talking to him about this multiple times. I've explained that while I appreciate his sense of humour, there are times when I need him to be serious and supportive, not funny and disruptive. I've asked him to dial back the pranking, especially during important conversations or stressful situations. His response is always that I used to think his pranks were funny, and he doesn't understand why I've become so uptight and serious. He says he's just trying to bring joy and laughter into our relationship, and that I should be grateful to be with someone who can make me laugh instead of complaining about it. But I'm not complaining about laughter in general. I'm asking for balance. I want to be able to laugh and have fun with my partner, but I also want to be able to have serious conversations, deal with stress, and be vulnerable without it becoming a comedy show. Jake seems incapable of reading the room or understanding when pranking is appropriate versus when it's not. Everything is fair game to him, and he gets genuinely hurt and confused when I don't find his pranks hilarious. I'm starting to feel like I can't trust him with my emotions or my serious concerns, because I never know if he's going to take me seriously or turn it into a joke. It's making me feel disconnected from him and unsure about our future together. I love Jake's playful side, but I need him to understand that being in a relationship means knowing when to be silly and when to be serious. Right now, he only seems capable of one mode, and it's exhausting. That story's over. There's a huge difference between playful humour and using pranks to avoid real emotional connection with your partner. Jake has turned their entire relationship into his personal comedy show, and he can't seem to understand that timing and context matter when it comes to humour. Recording someone while they're trying to be vulnerable about work stress is just cruel and shows a complete lack of empathy. She's not asking him to stop being funny. She's asking him to be a supportive partner who can read social cues and respond appropriately to serious situations. Our next story explores how cultural differences can create unexpected friction in relationships. My girlfriend refuses to try my culture's food. I'm Darren, 28, and I've been dating my girlfriend Michelle for about a year and 3 months. This might seem like a small issue, but it's really starting to bother me because it feels like she's rejecting an important part of who I am. I'm Filipino American, and food has always been a huge part of how my family expresses love and connection. Growing up, family gatherings always revolved around these massive meals where everyone would bring their signature dishes, and trying new foods or sharing recipes was how we bonded with people. When Michelle and I first started dating, I was excited to eventually introduce her to Filipino cuisine. I talked about how much I loved certain dishes, how my grandmother made the best lumpia, and how I was looking forward to taking her to this amazing Filipino restaurant that my family frequents. Michelle seemed interested at first, or at least she didn't say anything negative, but whenever I'd suggest going to a Filipino restaurant or offer to cook something traditional for her, she'd find reasons to avoid it or suggest we go somewhere else instead. The first real red flag came about 4 months into our relationship when my family invited her to a birthday party for my cousin. The whole extended family was going to be there, and my aunts had spent days preparing this incredible spread of traditional dishes. I was so excited to share this experience with Michelle and introduce her to everyone. When we got to the party and she saw all the food laid out, her reaction was not what I expected. She looked genuinely disgusted by some of the dishes, especially anything that looked unfamiliar to her. She kept making faces and asking me what things were in this suspicious tone, like she expected everything to be gross. She ended up only eating white rice and some of the grilled chicken, avoiding everything else completely. When my grandmother offered her homemade pancit, Michelle politely declined, but I could see the look of revulsion on her face. My family definitely noticed, and I felt embarrassed and hurt that she couldn't even pretend to be interested in trying anything. After the party, I asked Michelle about her reaction to the food, trying to give her a chance to explain. She said that a lot of the dishes just looked weird to her, and that she has a sensitive stomach when it comes to exotic food. The way she said exotic really bothered me, because these aren't exotic foods to me. They're just my culture's cuisine. I tried to explain that Filipino food isn't inherently weird or difficult to digest, and that a lot of it is actually quite mild and approachable. I offered to start with simpler dishes that might be more familiar to her palate, like chicken adobo or pork barbecue. But Michelle's response was that she just doesn't like trying new foods, in general, especially ones with strong flavours or unfamiliar ingredients. She said she's always been a picky eater, and that it's nothing personal against Filipino culture specifically. The thing is, I've seen her try plenty of other types of food. She loves sushi, she'll eat Indian food, she's adventurous when it comes to Italian or French cuisine. But when it comes to Filipino food, or really any Southeast Asian food, she acts like it's somehow beneath her or too strange to even consider. A few months ago, I decided to cook for her at home, thinking maybe she'd be more comfortable trying Filipino food in a private setting. I made chicken adobo, which is probably the mildest and most universally appealing Filipino dish I know. I explained all the ingredients to her beforehand, so she'd know exactly what she was eating. She took one small bite and immediately made this face like she was trying not to spit it out. She said it was too salty and had too many strange flavours. Then she asked if we could just order pizza instead. I was crushed because I'd put a lot of effort into making something special for her, and she couldn't even finish one bite. What really hurts is that food is such an important way that I connect with my heritage and my family. When Michelle refuses to even try these dishes, it feels like she's rejecting a fundamental part of who I am. It makes me wonder if she looks down on Filipino culture in general, or if she thinks it's somehow inferior to other cuisines she's willing to try. I've started to notice other small things too. She'll make comments about how Filipino restaurants smell funny, or she'll scrunch up her nose when I mention wanting to go to the Filipino grocery store. She's never outright said anything racist or deliberately hurtful, but her attitude toward Filipino culture feels dismissive and close-minded. The worst part is that I can't imagine building a life with someone who refuses to engage with such an important part of my identity. If we get married and have kids, I want to pass on Filipino traditions and foods to them. But how can I do that if my partner thinks our culture's cuisine is gross and weird? I've tried talking to Michelle about how this makes me feel, but she always deflects by saying she just has different food preferences and that it shouldn't be a big deal. She doesn't seem to understand that this isn't just about food preferences. It's about acceptance and respect for my cultural background. I'm starting to question whether we're really compatible if she can't even make an effort to appreciate something that's so meaningful to me and my family. That story is finished. The selective adventurousness when it comes to food really shows this isn't about being a picky eater. It's about specific cultural prejudice. The fact that she'll try sushi and Indian food but finds Filipino cuisine weird and exotic reveals some pretty problematic attitudes about what she considers acceptable versus foreign. Food is often the gateway to understanding and appreciating someone's culture, and her complete refusal to even make an effort sends a clear message about how she views his heritage. This kind of cultural dismissiveness would be a major red flag for the future of the relationship. Let's move to another story about feeling left out of important decisions. My partner never tells me when plans change. I'm 27 and I've been with my partner Alex for 2 years. We have a pretty good relationship overall, but there's this one pattern that's been driving me absolutely crazy and making me feel like I'm not a priority in their life. The issue is that Alex constantly makes plans with family and friends, and then changes those plans without telling me until the very last minute, if at all. This happens at least once or twice a week, and it's getting to the point where I feel like I'm always the last person to know what's going on in our shared life. For example, last weekend we had planned to go to Alex's sister's house for Sunday dinner. I had been looking forward to it all week because I really like Alex's family and we don't see them very often. I spent Saturday evening preparing a dessert to bring and made sure I had a nice outfit ready. Sunday morning I was getting ready when Alex casually mentioned that dinner had been moved to Saturday night instead and that they'd already gone without me. Apparently, Alex's sister had texted earlier in the week asking if they could switch days. Alex had said yes and then just forgot to mention it to me. I was standing there in my nice clothes, holding a homemade pie, feeling completely stupid. When I asked why they hadn't told me about the change, Alex said it had slipped their mind and that it wasn't a big deal since we could just go next time. But this kind of thing happens constantly. Alex will make plans for us to hang out with their friends, then change the location or time without telling me, leaving me showing up to the wrong place or at the wrong time. Or they'll cancel plans we've made together because something better came up with their family, and I'll find out when I'm already dressed and ready to go. The most frustrating part is that Alex always seems to remember to update everyone else about plan changes. Their friends and family always know what's going on, but somehow I'm consistently left out of the loop. It makes me feel like I'm not really considered part of their inner circle, even though we live together and have been dating for 2 years. Last month, Alex's college roommate was visiting from out of town, and we had all made plans to go out to dinner together. I was really excited to finally meet this person that Alex talks about all the time. The day of the dinner, I left work early so I could go home and get ready. When I got home, Alex was already gone. I texted asking where they were, and they responded that the dinner had been moved to lunch instead, and that they were already at the restaurant. They said they'd tried to call me, but my phone had gone to voicemail, so they just went ahead without me. I checked my phone and sure enough, there was one missed call from 3 hours earlier, but no follow-up text or voicemail explaining what was happening. I felt so excluded and hurt that they hadn't made more of an effort to reach me or wait for me to respond. When Alex got home that evening, they apologised but said they couldn't keep their friend waiting and that we could all hang out the next day instead. But the friend was flying out early the next morning, so I never got to meet them. I've tried talking to Alex about this pattern multiple times. I've explained that it makes me feel unimportant and excluded when I'm not kept in the loop about plan changes. I've asked them to please make an effort to communicate with me when things change, even if it's just a quick text. Alex always apologises and promises to do better, but then the same thing happens again the next week. They say they don't mean to leave me out, but that they're just naturally scatterbrained about communication and that I shouldn't take it personally. But it's hard not to take it personally when it happens so consistently. It feels like I'm not a priority in their life, or like they don't consider me a real partner who should be included in decision-making about our shared social calendar. The worst part is that it's starting to affect my relationships with Alex's friends and family. I've had to cancel on people or show up late so many times because of miscommunication that I'm starting to look unreliable myself. People probably think I'm flaky or that I don't want to spend time with them. I'm getting tired of feeling like an afterthought in my own relationship. I want to be with someone who considers me when making plans and who makes an effort to keep me informed about what's happening in our lives together. That story is finished. Being consistently left out of plan changes isn't scatterbrain behaviour. It's a clear indication of where you rank in their priorities. The fact that everyone else gets updates but you're forgotten suggests you're more of an accessory to their life than an actual partner. After 2 years together, you should be the first person they think to notify, not the last one to find out. This pattern is showing you exactly how much they value your presence in their social world. Moving to another story about financial transparency in relationships. My husband keeps secrets about his spending. I'm Rachel, 31, and I've been married to my husband Ethan for 5 years. We've always had separate bank accounts, which worked fine when we were dating, but lately I'm discovering that he's been hiding significant purchases from me, and it's really shaking my trust in our relationship. We both work full-time, and we split most of our shared expenses pretty evenly. We each pay half the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and other household costs. We've never felt the need to micromanage each other's spending, since we both contribute fairly to our shared responsibilities. The first time I noticed something was off was about 3 months ago, when a large package arrived, addressed to Ethan. When I asked what it was, he seemed nervous and said it was just some work stuff. But later, I saw him setting up what looked like a very expensive home theatre system in our basement. When I asked about it, he said he'd gotten a good deal on some speakers and a receiver. I didn't think much of it at the time, but I was surprised he hadn't mentioned wanting to upgrade our entertainment setup or asked if I wanted to go shopping for it together. A few weeks later, I noticed a new mountain bike in our garage. Again, when I asked about it, Ethan was vague and said he'd found it on sale and decided to treat himself. The bike looked really high-end and expensive, but I figured it was his money and his decision. But then I started paying more attention to packages being delivered and things appearing around our house. There was new golf equipment, expensive kitchen gadgets that we'd never discussed needing, designer clothes, and even a watch that looked like it cost more than I make in a month. Every time I'd ask about these purchases, Ethan would downplay them or change the subject. He'd say he got everything on sale or found great deals, but I was starting to doubt that explanation. The breaking point came last week when I was looking for a receipt in Ethan's car and found a bag full of crumpled up receipts stuffed under the passenger seat. Out of curiosity, I looked through them, and what I found shocked me. There were receipts for thousands of dollars worth of purchases over the past 6 months. The mountain bike had cost $3,500. The home theatre system was over $4,000. The watch was nearly $2,000. There were receipts for expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, clothing purchases at high-end stores, and even a weekend trip to a resort that I knew nothing about. When I added everything up, Ethan had spent over $15,000 in the past 6 months on things he'd either hidden from me completely or lied about the cost of. This was way beyond normal discretionary spending. I confronted him with the receipts, and his reaction made everything worse. Instead of being apologetic or trying to explain, he got angry and accused me of snooping through his private belongings. He said what he does with his own money is none of my business, and that he doesn't owe me explanations for his purchases. I tried to explain that it wasn't about controlling his spending, but about the lying and secrecy. If he wanted to buy expensive things, I wished he would just be honest about it, instead of hiding receipts and making up stories about sale prices. Ethan said he only kept the purchases quiet because he knew I would judge him, or try to talk him out of buying things he wanted. He said he works hard for his money and deserves to enjoy it without having to justify every purchase to me. But here's what really bothers me. While he's been spending thousands of dollars on luxury items for himself, I've been carefully budgeting and saving money for things we've talked about as a couple, like renovating our kitchen or taking a vacation together. I've been turning down girls' trips and shopping with friends because I wanted to save money for our shared goals. Meanwhile, he's been secretly living like he's single with no financial responsibilities to anyone but himself. The secretiveness is what really hurts. If he had just been upfront about wanting to spend money on hobbies and luxury items, we could have had an adult conversation about our budgets and priorities. Instead, he chose to lie and hide his spending, like a teenager hiding purchases from their parents. Now I'm wondering what else he might be hiding from me. If he can keep $15,000 worth of purchases secret for 6 months, what else don't I know about our financial situation? Does he have other accounts I don't know about? Is he in debt that I'm not aware of? I feel like I can't trust him anymore. And I don't know how we're supposed to build a life together if he's going to keep major parts of his life hidden from me. That story is over. Hiding $15,000 in purchases while your spouse saves for shared goals is financial infidelity, plain and simple. The fact that he got angry instead of apologetic when confronted shows he knew exactly how wrong his behaviour was. You can't build a partnership with someone who treats the relationship like a single person's checking account with a roommate who splits bills. This level of deception makes you question everything else they might be hiding. Let's move to our next story about feeling unsupported in social situations. My girlfriend never stands up for me with her friends. I'm Mike, 26, and I've been dating my girlfriend Hannah for about 1.5 years. Overall, our relationship is solid, but there's one issue that's been eating away at me and making me question whether she truly has my back. The problem is that Hannah's friend group constantly makes jokes and comments about me, often right in front of me, and Hannah never says anything to defend me. Instead, she usually just laughs along with them or stays silent, leaving me to either defend myself or just sit there and take it. Her friends aren't necessarily mean-spirited people, but they have this dynamic where they make fun of everyone and everything, and apparently I'm fair game. They make jokes about my job, my appearance, my interests, even personal things that Hannah has obviously shared with them in private. For example, I work as an accountant, which I know isn't the most exciting career in the world, but it's something I'm good at, and it pays well. Hannah's friends constantly make jokes about how boring I must be, how I probably love spreadsheets more than Hannah, and how she must fall asleep when I talk about work. These comments might be funny once in a while, but they happen every single time we're all together. It's gotten to the point where I dread hanging out with Hannah's friends, because I know I'm going to spend the evening being the butt of everyone's jokes. The worst incident happened at Hannah's birthday party last month. We were all at this bar celebrating, and one of her friends, Jessica, started telling this story about how Hannah had complained to them about my weird habits at home. Apparently, Hannah had told them that I like to organise our shared spaces and that I have specific ways I prefer things to be arranged. Jessica was making it sound like I was some kind of obsessive control freak, describing how I supposedly have rules about how to load the dishwasher and where things go in the refrigerator. She was exaggerating everything and making me sound completely unreasonable. The whole group was laughing hysterically while Jessica did this dramatic impression of me supposedly lecturing Hannah about proper towel folding techniques. I was sitting right there, feeling completely humiliated, while my girlfriend laughed along with everyone else. What hurt the most was that the things Jessica was describing weren't even accurate. Yes, I like things to be organised, but I've never been controlling or demanding about it with Hannah. I just have preferences about how I organise my own stuff. And sometimes I'll organise shared spaces because I enjoy it, not because I'm trying to control Hannah, but Hannah never corrected any of the exaggerations or stood up for me. She just let her friends paint this picture of me as some kind of uptight weirdo while she laughed along with them. After the party, I told Hannah how hurt I was by what had happened. I explained that it felt awful to have her friends make fun of me while she just sat there and laughed. I asked her why she hadn't said anything to defend me or correct Jessica's exaggerations. Hannah said she was just trying to keep things light and fun at her birthday party, and that she didn't want to create drama by getting into an argument with her friends. She said Jessica was just being funny, and that I was taking things too seriously. But this isn't an isolated incident. Hannah's friends regularly make comments about my clothes, my car, my hobbies, and anything else they can think of to get a laugh. They've made jokes about my family, my college major, even my relationship with Hannah herself. One of her friends once said, right in front of me, that she couldn't understand what Hannah saw in me and that Hannah could do so much better. Instead of defending me or telling her friend that was inappropriate, Hannah just rolled her eyes and said, "Guys, be nice," in this half-hearted way that didn't shut down the comment at all. I've started to feel like Hannah is embarrassed by me or doesn't respect me enough to stand up for me when her friends are being mean. If she really loved and valued me, wouldn't she want to shut down people who are making fun of me? I understand that friend groups have different dynamics and that some people show affection through teasing. But there's a difference between playful teasing and consistently making someone feel unwelcome and disrespected. What makes it worse is that I've always been respectful and supportive when it comes to Hannah's friendships. I've never made negative comments about her friends, even though I don't particularly enjoy spending time with them. I've tried to be a good sport about their humour and fit in with their group, but I'm starting to feel like I can't count on Hannah to have my back when I need her support. If she won't defend me from her friends' jokes and comments, how can I trust her to support me in more serious situations? I don't want to be the boyfriend who demands that his girlfriend choose between him and her friends, but I also don't think it's unreasonable to expect my partner to stand up for me when people are being disrespectful. That story is over. Watching your partner laugh along while their friends mock you is one of the most isolating feelings in a relationship. Hannah's excuse about not wanting to create drama basically means she's willing to sacrifice his dignity to keep her friends entertained. A good partner doesn't let their social circle use their boyfriend as a punching bag for entertainment. The fact that she downplays his hurt feelings and calls it just being funny shows she values her friend's approval more than his comfort and respect. Our next story deals with financial boundaries in an engagement. My fiancé refuses to share a bank account. I'm Jennifer, 28, and I got engaged to my boyfriend David about 6 months ago. We're planning to get married next spring, and as we've been discussing the practical aspects of combining our lives, we've run into a major disagreement about finances that's making me question whether we're really ready for marriage. I've always believed that when you get married, you should combine your finances completely. To me, marriage means becoming a team in every aspect of life, including money. I think shared bank accounts create transparency and force couples to communicate about their financial goals and spending habits. David, on the other hand, is adamant about keeping our finances completely separate even after we get married. He wants to maintain his own checking and savings accounts, and he thinks we should just split shared expenses down the middle like we do now. When I first brought up the idea of opening a joint account, David's reaction was surprisingly strong. He said he values his financial independence and doesn't want to have to ask permission or justify his purchases to anyone. He said he's worked hard to build up his savings and wants to maintain control over his own money. I tried to explain that sharing an account doesn't mean we'd have to ask permission for every purchase, just that we'd both have visibility into our overall financial picture. I think it's important for married couples to be on the same page about money and to work together towards shared financial goals. But David seems to view any kind of financial transparency as a threat to his autonomy. He said things like he doesn't want me monitoring his spending or having access to information about his salary, savings, or investments. This is particularly confusing to me because we've been together for 3 years and we already split most of our expenses fairly. It's not like I'm some gold digger trying to get access to his money. I have my own career and my own savings. I just think that marriage should involve more financial partnership than we currently have. What really bothers me is that David seems to be planning for our marriage to fail. When I asked him why he's so resistant to combining finances, he said that keeping things separate would make it easier if we ever got divorced. He actually used the word when, not if. I was shocked that he was already thinking about divorce before we were even married. To me, that suggests he's not fully committed to making our marriage work. If you're planning for failure, how can you put your whole heart into building a successful partnership? David tried to backtrack and said he just meant it was smart to be practical about finances, but his initial reaction revealed how he really feels about our future together. He's keeping one foot out the door by maintaining complete financial independence. I'm very secretive about his money in general. Also started to notice that David is. I don't know how much he makes, how much he has saved, or what his financial goals are. When I've tried to have conversations about our future plans, like buying a house or saving for retirement, he gives vague answers and changes the subject. This lack of transparency is making me feel like we're not really partners. How can we make major life decisions together if I don't even know what our combined financial picture looks like? How can we plan for the future if he won't share basic information about his income and savings? I've tried to compromise by suggesting that we could maintain separate accounts for personal spending, but also have a joint account for shared expenses and savings goals. But David rejected that idea too, saying it was just a way for me to gradually gain access to his finances. His attitude is making me feel like he doesn't trust me, and it's also making me question whether I can trust him. If he's this secretive about money now, what else might he be hiding from me? Is he in debt that I don't know about? Does he have expenses or financial obligations that he hasn't told me about? The more we've discussed this, the more I've realised that David and I have fundamentally different ideas about what marriage should look like. I want to build a life with someone who sees us as a team working towards shared goals. He seems to want a marriage that's more like two single people who happen to live in the same house and split the rent. I'm starting to wonder if we should postpone the wedding until we can, is a sign that we're not compatible resolve this issue, or if this for marriage at all. That story is finished. Planning for divorce before you're even married while refusing basic financial transparency is a massive red flag. David's resistance to any kind of shared financial planning suggests he's either hiding something significant or genuinely doesn't view marriage as a true partnership. The fact that he won't even discuss his income or savings after 3 years together shows a level of secrecy that goes way beyond protecting financial independence. You can't build a marriage with someone who's already planning their exit strategy. Let's continue with another story about personal expression in relationships. My boyfriend doesn't want me wearing makeup. I'm Sarah, 24, and I've been with my boyfriend Brian for about 10 months now. This might seem like a shallow issue, but it's really starting to affect how I feel about myself and our relationship. I've always enjoyed wearing makeup, not because I feel like I need it to look good, but because I genuinely find it fun and creative. I like experimenting with different looks, trying new products, and using makeup as a way to express my mood or style for the day. It's been part of my routine since I was a teenager, and it's something that makes me feel confident and put together. When Brian and I first started dating, he would compliment my makeup and say I looked beautiful. I thought he appreciated the effort I put into my appearance, and it felt good to have someone notice when I tried a new eyeshadow look or perfected my winged eyeliner. But about 3 months ago, his attitude completely shifted. He started making comments about how I looked better without makeup and how he preferred my natural beauty. At first, I thought it was sweet that he found me attractive without any enhancement, but then the comments became more frequent and more critical. He started saying things like, "Why do you need all that stuff on your face?" or "You're covering up your real beauty." When I'd spend time getting ready in the morning, he'd make jokes about how long I was taking or ask if I was putting on war paint. The turning point came a few weeks ago when we were getting ready to go out to dinner with some of his co-workers. I had spent about 30 minutes doing a nice makeup look because I wanted to make a good impression on people he works with. When I came out of the bathroom, Brian looked annoyed. He said I looked like I was trying too hard and asked why I felt the need to cake on makeup just to go to dinner. He said his co-workers would think I was high maintenance or superficial if I showed up looking so done up. I was hurt and confused because I didn't think my makeup was excessive at all. I was wearing foundation, some eyeshadow, mascara and lipstick. Nothing dramatic or over the top, just a polished everyday look. When I tried to explain that wearing makeup makes me feel confident and that I enjoy it as a form of self-expression, Brian said that was exactly the problem. He said if I needed makeup to feel confident, then I had self-esteem issues that I should work on instead of covering them up with cosmetics. He also said something that really bothered me. He claimed that when women wear makeup, they're doing it to attract attention from other men, not for themselves. He said he didn't understand why I would want to make myself look more attractive if I wasn't trying to get male attention. I tried to explain that I wear makeup for myself, not for other people, but he insisted that was impossible. He said all women who wear makeup are either insecure or trying to flirt, and that he was disappointed to find out I was that type of girl. Since that conversation, I felt really self-conscious about my makeup routine. Sometimes I'll start getting ready in the morning and then think about Brian's comments and end up washing everything off. Other times, I'll wear makeup anyway, but I'll feel guilty about it all day. The worst part is that Brian has started making comments about other women's makeup when we're out in public. He'll point to women wearing bold lipstick or dramatic eye makeup and say things like, "Look at how desperate she looks," or "I bet her boyfriend hates that." I'm starting to feel like he's trying to control how I look and express myself. Makeup isn't just about vanity for me. It's a creative outlet and something that brings me joy. The fact that he wants me to stop doing something that makes me happy feels really controlling and manipulative. I've tried compromising by wearing less makeup when we're together, but even minimal mascara and lip gloss gets comments from him now. It feels like he won't be satisfied unless I never wear makeup at all. I don't understand why this is such a big deal to him. I'm not asking him to change his appearance or stop doing things he enjoys. Why can't he extend the same courtesy to me? I'm starting to question whether we're compatible if he can't accept this basic part of who I am and how I like to express myself. That story is over. The whole "you're doing it for other men" accusation is such a classic controlling move that it's almost textbook manipulation. Brian went from complimenting her makeup to systematically tearing down her self-expression and trying to shame her into changing. The fact that he's now pointing out other women in public to criticize their makeup shows this isn't about preference, it's about control. Nobody should have to wash off their face to avoid their boyfriend's judgment. Let's dive into another story about someone whose partner has taken social media sharing way too far. My wife shares too much online. I'm David, 32, and I've been married to my wife Lily for 4 years. She's always been active on social media, which I never minded, but over the past year, her posting has gotten completely out of control, and it's starting to seriously impact our relationship and my privacy. Lily posts on Facebook multiple times every day, and it's not just the usual photos of food or cute animal videos. She shares incredibly personal details about our marriage, our arguments, our finances, and even our intimate life. Nothing seems to be off limits to her when it comes to getting likes and comments from her Facebook friends. Last month, we had a disagreement about whether to visit her parents or mine for Thanksgiving. It was a pretty normal couple discussion where we each presented our cases and eventually worked out a compromise. But while we were still talking about it, Lily posted a long rant on Facebook about how I was being selfish and didn't care about her family. She detailed our entire conversation, including things I had said that were taken completely out of context. She made me sound like some kind of monster who hates her parents, when really I just had legitimate scheduling concerns about the dates they had suggested. Her friends immediately started commenting with advice about our relationship and criticism of my behaviour. Some people I'd never even met were calling me inconsiderate and telling Lily she deserved better. I felt completely humiliated seeing our private disagreement turned into public entertainment for her social media followers. When I asked Lily to delete the post, she said I was being controlling and that she should be able to share her feelings with her friends. She said Facebook was her outlet for stress and that I shouldn't try to censor her emotional expression. But this wasn't just sharing feelings, it was sharing private details about our relationship without my consent. And it's become a pattern that happens every time we have any kind of conflict or challenge. When I lost my job 3 months ago, Lily posted about it before I had even told my own family. She shared details about my severance package, how stressed I was about finding new work, and even mentioned specific companies I was applying to. I found out about the post when my sister called, asking if I was okay because she'd seen it on Facebook. I was mortified that my personal business was being broadcast to hundreds of people without my knowledge or permission. Some of those people are professional contacts or acquaintances who didn't need to know about my employment situation. Even worse, Lily posts about our sex life. Not explicitly, but she'll make posts about being frustrated with her husband's performance lately or complaining that we don't have enough intimacy. She uses coded language, but anyone reading her posts can figure out what she's talking about. I've had co-workers make awkward comments to me based on things they've read on Lily's Facebook. Last week, a guy from my department asked if everything was okay at home, because he'd seen some concerning posts from my wife. I wanted to disappear. The financial oversharing is particularly embarrassing. Lily posts about every major purchase we make, every bill we're struggling with, and even our savings goals. She posted photos of our tax refund check and complained publicly about how much we spent on car repairs. I feel like our entire life has become content for her social media presence. She can't experience anything without immediately thinking about how to package it for Facebook. Even good moments get turned into performative posts about how lucky she is or how much she loves her life. When I try to talk to her about privacy and boundaries, she accuses me of being ashamed of our relationship or not wanting her to have friends. She says social media is how people connect these days and that I'm being old-fashioned by expecting her to keep things private. But there's a difference between connecting with friends and broadcasting every intimate detail of your marriage to anyone who follows you online. I feel like I can't trust her with sensitive information because I never know what's going to end up as a Facebook post. The most frustrating part is that she always frames these posts in a way that makes me look bad while making herself look like the victim or the hero. Our private conversations get twisted into public narratives where she's always right and I'm always the problem. I'm starting to feel like I'm married to her Facebook persona instead of the real person, and that our relationship exists primarily to provide her with content to share online. That story is over. Living with someone who treats your entire marriage like a reality show for Facebook is exhausting and humiliating. The fact that she's posting about their sex life and his job loss without permission shows a complete lack of respect for basic boundaries. She's essentially turned him into a character in her online drama series, and now his co-workers are getting front row seats to their private problems. Some things are supposed to stay between two people, not become entertainment for hundreds of strangers. Moving on to another story about feeling like you're always the one making the emotional effort in a relationship. My partner never says I love you first. I've been with my partner for about a year and 8 months now, and there's something that's been bothering me more and more as our relationship has progressed. I'm always the one who says I love you first in any conversation, and I'm starting to wonder if this means they don't feel as strongly about me as I do about them. When we first started saying I love you to each other around month 6 of dating, it felt natural and mutual. We both seemed excited to reach that milestone, and I thought we were on the same page emotionally. But looking back, I realised that even then, I was the one who said it first. Now, almost 2 years in, I've noticed this pattern has become consistent across every single interaction we have. When we're saying goodbye in the morning, I say I love you, and they respond with I love you too. When we're ending phone calls, I'm always the one to say it first. Before we go to sleep, I say I love you, and they echo it back. At first, I didn't think much of it. Some people are just more verbally expressive than others, and I figured they were just less likely to initiate those kinds of statements. But it's been happening for over a year now, and they have never once been the first person to say I love you in any context. I started paying attention to other forms of affection and emotional expression, and I realised the same pattern exists there too. I'm always the first one to reach for their hand when we're walking. I initiate most of our hugs and kisses. I'm the one who suggests we spend quality time together or plan romantic gestures. It's not that they reject my affection or seem uncomfortable with it. They respond positively to everything I do, and they seem happy to reciprocate. But they never initiate these moments themselves, which makes me feel like I'm the only one actively working to maintain the emotional connection in our relationship. I've started to wonder if they would ever say, I love you, if I stopped saying it first. Would we just stop exchanging those words altogether? Do they only say it back because they feel obligated to respond, or because they genuinely feel it in the moment? This has made me start questioning the authenticity of their feelings for me. When someone says I love you too, are they expressing their own independent emotion, or are they just politely responding to what you said? How can I tell the difference? I've tried experimenting with this by waiting longer before saying I love you during our goodbyes or phone calls, hoping they might fill the silence with their own expression of love. But they seem perfectly comfortable with the silence, and eventually I always cave and say it myself because the moment feels incomplete without it. The worst part is that this pattern is making me feel needy and clingy, even though I don't think I'm being excessive with my affection. I just want to feel like my partner is as emotionally invested in our relationship as I am, and that they think about expressing their love for me without being prompted. I've considered bringing this up directly, but I'm worried that if I have to ask them to say, I love you first sometimes, it won't feel genuine when they do it. I want them to say it because they feel compelled to express their love, not because I've made it into a relationship assignment. But I also don't want to spend the rest of our relationship feeling like I'm the only one actively nurturing our emotional bond. It's exhausting to always be the one reaching out, initiating affection, and working to maintain intimacy. I love them deeply, and I want to make this work, but I need to feel like they're meeting me halfway when it comes to emotional expression and effort. That story is over. Being the emotional initiator in every single interaction would make anyone question whether their feelings are truly reciprocated. It's one thing to have different communication styles, but never once saying, I love you first in almost 2 years suggests either emotional laziness or genuine disinterest. The fact that they're comfortable with silence when affection is expected shows they're not even thinking about expressing love independently. Love should feel like a conversation, not a monologue with an echo. Let's continue with another story about work-life balance creating serious relationship strain. My husband works late every night. I'm Jessica, 29, and I've been married to my husband James for 3 years. Over the past year, his work schedule has completely taken over our lives, and I'm starting to feel like I'm married to a ghost who occasionally sleeps in my bed. James works in finance at a mid-sized investment firm, and he's always been dedicated to his career. When we first got married, he would typically get home around 7 or 8 in the evening, which gave us time to have dinner together and spend quality time before bed. I respected his work ethic and understood that his job could be demanding. But starting about a year ago, James began staying at the office later and later. First, it was until 9 p.m, then 10 p.m, and now he regularly doesn't get home until 11 p.m. or midnight. Some nights he doesn't come home until after 1 a.m, and there have been a few occasions where he stayed at the office all night. According to James, his company is going through a major expansion, and everyone is expected to put in extra hours to handle the increased workload. He says this is temporary and that things will calm down once they hire more staff, but it's been going on for over a year now with no signs of improvement. I eat dinner alone every single night now. We used to cook together on weekends and try new recipes, but now James is usually too tired to do anything but order takeout. Our conversations have become limited to brief check-ins about schedules and household logistics. I've tried to be supportive and understanding about his work demands, but I'm starting to feel completely neglected and lonely in my own marriage. I go to bed alone most nights and wake up alone most mornings because James is either still at work or leaving early for another long day. When I've brought up my concerns about our lack of quality time together, James gets defensive and says he's working hard to provide for our future. He reminds me that his salary supports both of us and that I should be grateful he's so committed to his career. But here's what's really bothering me. Last week, I was scrolling through social media and saw that James's co-worker had posted photos from what looks like a work happy hour. In the background of one photo, I could clearly see James laughing and having drinks with several colleagues, including some women I didn't recognise. This was on a Thursday night when James had texted me, saying he had to work late on a big presentation and wouldn't be home until after midnight. But the timestamp on the social media post showed it was taken at 9 p.m, and James didn't get home until 1 a.m. When I asked him about it the next day, James said the happy hour was technically a work event because they were discussing strategy with clients who were there. He said it was networking and that I wouldn't understand the complexities of his job, but I started paying more attention to his explanations for why he was staying late, and I began noticing inconsistencies. Sometimes he'd say he was in meetings, but when I'd call the office phone, it would go straight to voicemail. Other times he'd mention working on specific projects, but then couldn't give me details about what he was actually doing. I'm starting to suspect that James isn't actually working as late as he claims. Maybe he's going out with co-workers, or maybe he's just avoiding coming home because he'd rather be anywhere else than spending time with me. The possibility that he's lying about his schedule makes everything so much worse. If he really is working 80 hours a week, then at least I can understand why we never spend time together. But if he's choosing to stay away from home and using work as an excuse, then our marriage has much bigger problems than I thought. I feel like I'm living with a stranger who uses our house as a hotel. We're not building a life together or working towards shared goals. We're just two people who happen to share a mortgage and a last name. I've started to dread weekends because even when James is home, he's usually exhausted or stressed about work. He spends most of Saturday and Sunday catching up on sleep or doing work he brought home with him. I love James, but I'm beginning to question whether he loves me back or if he's just staying married out of habit and convenience. If work is always going to be his first priority, then I don't know what kind of future we can have together. That story is over. The social media discovery showing him at happy hour when he claimed to be working late is a game changer that transforms this from a work-life balance issue into potential deception. Using career advancement as an excuse to avoid your spouse while actually socializing with co-workers is emotional abandonment disguised as ambition. She's essentially become a roommate who pays half the mortgage while he builds his social life around everyone except his wife. Work demands are one thing, but lying about where you are and who you're with crosses into betrayal territory. Here's the next story. My girlfriend says she wants space but still texts daily. Posted by OPI. So I'm completely confused right now and need some outside perspective because I feel like I'm losing my mind. My girlfriend of about 8 months told me 3 weeks ago that she needed some space to figure things out. She said she was feeling overwhelmed with work and school and that our relationship was adding pressure she couldn't handle right now. I was obviously hurt, but I respected what she was asking for. I told her I'd give her the space she needed and that I hoped we could work things out when she was ready. We agreed that we'd take a break from seeing each other and from constant communication while she sorted through whatever she was dealing with. Here's where it gets confusing. The very next day, after asking for space, she texted me good morning like nothing had happened. I didn't respond because I thought she wanted space, but then she texted again, asking if I was okay and why I wasn't answering. When I reminded her that she had asked for space, she said she just meant space from hanging out all the time, not from talking completely. Since then, she's been texting me every single day, multiple times a day actually. She sends me memes, asks about my day, tells me about random stuff happening in her life, and even sends goodnight texts. If I take more than a few hours to respond, she'll send follow-up messages asking if something's wrong or if I'm mad at her. Last week, she called me crying because she had a bad day at work and needed someone to talk to. We ended up talking for 2 hours about everything except our relationship status. It felt exactly like it did before she asked for space, except now I'm constantly confused about what we are and what she actually wants from me. When I tried to bring up the mixed signals, she got defensive and said I was making things too complicated. She said she just wants to take things slow and not feel pressured, but that she still cares about me and wants me in her life. She accused me of being unsupportive when she's going through a difficult time. I feel like I'm in relationship limbo. I can't move on because she's still very much in my daily life. But I can't fully invest either, because she's the one who said she needed space. I'm starting to feel like she wants all the emotional support and companionship of a relationship without any of the commitment or expectations that come with it. My friends are telling me she's being selfish and that I should either make her choose or walk away completely. But I care about her and don't want to abandon her if she's genuinely struggling. At the same time, this situation is starting to mess with my head because I never know where I stand with her. Yesterday, she suggested we hang out and watch a movie at her place, just as friends. When I pointed out that this seemed to contradict her need for space, she said I was overthinking everything and that hanging out as friends was different from dating pressure. I'm honestly lost. Does wanting space while maintaining daily contact make any sense? Or am I being manipulated? Is this normal behaviour when someone is figuring things out? Or should I be more concerned about the mixed messages I'm getting? That story's over. This girl wants to have her cake and eat it too. And honestly, it sounds exhausting. She's keeping you on an emotional leash while she figures out what she wants, which isn't fair to either of you. Space means space, not daily texting and emotional phone calls. If she wanted to stay friends while sorting things out, that should have been the conversation from the beginning. The fact that she gets defensive when you point out the contradiction tells you everything you need to know about how much she's actually considered your feelings in this whole situation. Moving on to our next story, and this one's about someone who's been waiting 2 years for their partner to take a pretty basic relationship step. My boyfriend never wants to meet my family. Posted by Kelly. I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years now, and this issue is starting to really get to me. Every time my family has any kind of gathering, celebration, or just casual get-together, he finds an excuse not to come. At first, I thought maybe he was just shy or needed more time to feel comfortable with the idea, but now I'm starting to wonder if there's something deeper going on. My family isn't intimidating or overwhelming. We're pretty normal people who get together for birthdays, holidays, and sometimes just weekend barbecues. They've all expressed interest in meeting him and have been nothing but welcoming whenever I mention bringing him around. My mum has even specifically invited him to family dinners multiple times. In 2 years, he's never come to a single family event. Christmas dinner? He had to work. My sister's birthday party? He wasn't feeling well. Easter brunch? He had plans with his own friends that he couldn't change. My dad's retirement celebration? He said family parties made him uncomfortable and he didn't want to intrude. The excuses always seem plausible in the moment, but when I look at the pattern, it's pretty obvious that he's actively avoiding meeting my family. What makes it more frustrating is that he's never actually said he doesn't want to meet them. He always acts like he wants to come and seems disappointed when something comes up, but something always comes up. I've met his parents, his siblings, his college friends, and pretty much everyone important in his life. His family has welcomed me completely, and I've been to dozens of their gatherings over the past 2 years. His mum even calls me directly sometimes to invite me to things. I feel like I'm part of his family, but he won't even give mine a chance. When I try to talk to him about it, he gets defensive and says I'm putting pressure on him. He claims he wants to meet them when the timing feels right, and that forcing it will make things awkward. He says he's not ready for that step yet, and that I should be patient with him. But 2 years feels like more than enough time to be ready. We've talked about moving in together, we've discussed future plans, and we act like we're in a serious, long-term relationship in every other way. The only thing missing is him acknowledging that my family exists and matters to me. Last month was my nephew's first birthday party, and I really wanted him there. It was important to me that he meet my nephew and be part of this milestone moment. When I brought it up, he said he'd try to make it work but couldn't promise anything because he might have to help his friend move that weekend. The day of the party, he texted me an hour before saying his friend definitely needed help and he couldn't make it. Later that night, I saw on social media that he'd spent the day playing video games with different friends, not helping anyone move. When I confronted him about lying, he said his plans had changed and he didn't want to show up to a family party when he was in a bad mood. I'm starting to feel like he's embarrassed by me or my family, or like he doesn't see our relationship as serious enough to warrant meeting the people who matter most to me. It's getting harder to make excuses to my family about why he's never around, and honestly, it's starting to affect how they view our relationship. My mum asked me recently if everything was okay between us because it seemed strange that he'd been my boyfriend for 2 years, but had never even said hello to any of them. I didn't know what to say because I'm starting to wonder the same thing. I love him and want this relationship to work, but I'm feeling more and more like he's keeping one foot out the door by refusing to integrate into my life in any meaningful way. Is it unreasonable for me to expect him to meet my family after 2 years together? Am I being too pushy, or is this a legitimate red flag that I should be concerned about? That story is over. 2 years is way past the point where meeting your partner's family should be a big deal, and the fact that he's comfortable with you being part of his family while actively avoiding yours is telling. This isn't about shyness or timing. It's about him not being fully invested in your relationship. The lying about his plans was the final nail in the coffin because it shows he'd rather deceive you than just be honest about not wanting to go. Someone who sees a future with you wouldn't treat the people you love like they don't exist. Let's move on to a story about someone dealing with constant comparisons that are slowly destroying their self-esteem. My husband compares me to his friends' wives, posted by Marcus. This is something that's been eating away at me for months, and I finally need to get it off my chest because I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this is as problematic as it feels. My husband has started constantly comparing me to his friends' wives, and it's making me feel terrible about myself and our marriage. It started small, with little comments here and there, but now it feels like every conversation somehow turns into him telling me about something another wife does that I apparently don't do well enough. Last week, he came home from his friend Dave's house and spent 20 minutes telling me about how organised Dave's wife keeps their kitchen and how she always has dinner ready when he gets home from work. When I pointed out that I also work full-time and we usually cook together or take turns making dinner, he said that Dave's wife works too, but still manages to have everything together. He suggested that maybe I could be more efficient with my time management, like she is. 2 weeks ago, he went to a barbecue at another friend's house and came back raving about how Mike's wife had made all these elaborate side dishes from scratch, and how impressed everyone was with her cooking. He said it in a way that made it clear he thought I should be doing the same thing. When we go to parties, I usually bring something simple, like a store-bought dessert or a salad, and apparently that's not impressive enough. It's not just about cooking and housework, though that's a big part of it. He compares how I dress to how other wives dress, saying things like how put together Sarah always looks, or how Jennifer always does her hair nicely, even for casual events. He's made comments about how some of his friends' wives are always cheerful and supportive, implying that I'm not positive enough. Last month he told me about how his co-worker's wife surprised him with tickets to a baseball game for his birthday, and then asked why I never think of thoughtful surprises like that. I reminded him that I had planned a surprise weekend getaway for his birthday last year, but he brushed that off and said that was different. The worst part is how he frames these comparisons. He never directly says, I'm not good enough, but he'll say things like, maybe we could try doing things like they do, or I wonder if we could be more like them in that way. It feels passive-aggressive and makes me feel like he's constantly evaluating me against other women and finding me lacking. When I tried to talk to him about how these comments make me feel, he got defensive and said he was just trying to share ideas for how we could improve our life together. He said he wasn't comparing me to anyone, just noticing things that worked well for other couples. He accused me of being too sensitive and not being open to suggestions, but they don't feel like suggestions. They feel like criticisms disguised as observations. Every time he tells me about something another wife does, I hear that I'm not doing enough, not trying hard enough, not being the kind of wife he really wants. I've started dreading social events with his friends because I know he's going to come home with new examples of things I should be doing differently. I find myself paying attention to what other wives are wearing, what they bring to parties, how they interact with their husbands, because I know he's watching and comparing. It's affecting my self-confidence in ways I didn't expect. I used to feel good about our division of labour and the way we handled household responsibilities, but now I second-guess everything I do. I wonder if I'm being lazy when I buy something instead of making it from scratch, or if I should be dressing up more for casual events. The ironic thing is that I don't think any of these other wives are actually doing anything extraordinary. They're just living their lives and handling their responsibilities, same as me. But somehow when he talks about them, they sound like perfect wives who have it all figured out while I'm just stumbling through. I love my husband, and I want our marriage to work, but I feel like he's never satisfied with me as I am. There's always some way I could be better, some example I should be following, some standard I'm not quite meeting. I don't know how to make him understand that these constant comparisons are hurting me and our relationship. That story is over. This behaviour is toxic and manipulative, even if he doesn't realise it. No one should have to live with constant evaluations against other people, especially in their own marriage. The fact that he gets defensive and calls you too sensitive when you express how it makes you feel shows he's not interested in changing, just in making you feel bad about bringing it up. Marriage should be about building each other up, not tearing each other down with impossible standards based on other people's highlight reels. You deserve a partner who celebrates who you are, not someone who's constantly shopping for who you could become. Our next story comes from someone whose partner has turned one of the most basic relationship traditions into a source of ongoing conflict. My wife refuses to celebrate anniversaries, posted by Anonymous. I need some perspective on this because I'm starting to feel like I'm going crazy. My wife and I have been married for 4 years now, and she absolutely refuses to acknowledge our anniversary in any way. Not just that she doesn't want to do anything big, but she actively gets annoyed when I try to make the day special at all. Every year, I try to plan something nice for us. Our first anniversary, I made dinner reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date. She cancelled them the day before and said she didn't understand why we needed to make a big deal out of just another day. I thought maybe she was just stressed from work, so I suggested we could do something simple at home instead. She said that would be even worse because then she'd feel obligated to pretend to be excited. The second year, I learnt my lesson and kept it low-key. I just brought home flowers and a card. She looked at the flowers like I'd brought home a dead animal and asked why I was wasting money on something that would just die in a week. When I said it was for our anniversary, she rolled her eyes and said that celebrating the day we signed a piece of paper was arbitrary and meaningless. Last year, I tried a completely different approach. I suggested we could make it about us and our relationship rather than the legal paperwork. Maybe we could celebrate the day we first met, or our first date, or when we moved in together. She shot down every suggestion and said that celebrating relationship milestones was something insecure people did when they needed external validation for their choices. This year, I decided to test whether she really meant what she said about it being meaningless, so I didn't plan anything at all. Our anniversary came and went, without me mentioning it once. I figured if she truly didn't care, then she wouldn't notice or bring it up either. But she did notice. 3 days later, she asked me sarcastically if I was giving her the silent treatment because she didn't fall all over myself celebrating our anniversary. When I said I thought she didn't want to celebrate it, she said that was different from me not caring enough to try. She accused me of being passive-aggressive and using her previous reactions as an excuse to be lazy about our relationship. I'm completely lost. She gets angry when I try to celebrate our anniversary, but she also gets angry when I don't try to celebrate it. She says it's meaningless, but then acts hurt when I treat it like it's meaningless. I feel like no matter what I do, I'm wrong. Her friends have started asking me what we did for our anniversary each year, and I never know what to say. I've started making up small things so they don't think I'm a terrible husband, but I feel awful lying about it. Last month, one of them mentioned how sweet it was, that I always plan something special, and I could see my wife getting annoyed, even though she's the reason I have to lie. When I try to talk to her about the mixed messages, she says I'm overthinking everything, and that I should just know what she wants without her having to explain it. But I genuinely don't know what she wants, because she seems to want opposite things depending on what I actually do. I love my wife, and I want to make her happy, but I feel like I'm walking on eggshells every time our anniversary approaches. I've started dreading what should be a happy day, because I know that whatever I do or don't do will somehow be wrong. Is it normal for someone to hate celebrating anniversaries this much? Or is there something deeper going on that I'm not understanding? That story is over. This woman has created an impossible situation where you can never win, and that's not fair to anyone in a marriage. She's sending completely contradictory messages and then getting mad at you for not reading her mind about what she really wants. Either she wants to celebrate or she doesn't, but making you feel bad regardless of your choice is manipulative behaviour. The fact that she's more concerned about what her friends think than being honest about her own preferences shows this isn't really about anniversaries at all. Next up is a story about someone whose partner thinks professional help is a waste of time. My partner doesn't believe in therapy, posted by Sarah. I'm at my wit's end trying to figure out how to handle this situation with my boyfriend of 3 years. We've been having communication problems for a while now, and every time I suggest couples therapy or even individual therapy for either of us, he completely shuts down the conversation and makes me feel stupid for even bringing it up. Our communication issues aren't terrible, but they're definitely getting worse over time. We have the same arguments over and over again, without ever resolving anything. I'll try to explain how something he did made me feel, and he'll get defensive and turn it around on me. Or he'll bring up something that's bothering him, but instead of having a productive conversation about it, we both end up frustrated and nothing gets solved. I suggested couples therapy about 6 months ago after we had a particularly bad fight about household responsibilities that lasted for 3 days. I thought having a neutral third party help us communicate better might prevent us from going in circles the way we always do. His response was to laugh and ask if I was serious about wanting to pay someone to listen to our problems. He said therapy is for people who are too weak to handle their own issues and that we should be able to figure out our problems, like adults, without needing help. He said therapists just tell people what they want to hear and take their money, and that most relationship problems solve themselves if you just give them time. When I pointed out that we'd been having the same problems for over a year, he said that proved we were fine because we were still together. I've brought it up several more times since then, and his reaction gets more dismissive each time. Last month I mentioned that I was thinking about going to therapy by myself to work on some anxiety issues I've been having, And he asked why I wanted to waste money talking to a stranger about things I could just work through on my own. He said therapy is a scam that convinces people they have problems they don't actually have, and that therapists keep patients coming back by making them dependent on outside validation instead of trusting themselves. He said I was stronger than I thought and didn't need someone else to tell me how to live my life. The thing is, I know he's had some bad experiences with mental health professionals in the past. His parents forced him to go to counselling as a teenager after they got divorced, and he hated it. He said the therapist took his mum's side in everything and made him feel like the divorce was somehow his fault. He also had to see a counsellor at school after he got in trouble for fighting, and he said that person just lectured him about anger management without trying to understand why he was angry. I get that those experiences probably shaped his opinion, but I feel like he's projecting his past onto our current situation. I'm not suggesting therapy because I think we're broken or because I want someone to take sides. I just think having better communication tools would help us both feel more heard and understood in our relationship. What's frustrating is that he'll complain about the same issues we argue about, but when I suggest getting help to work on them, he acts like I'm being dramatic. Last week he was venting about how we never seem to understand each other during disagreements. But when I said that was exactly why I thought therapy could help, he said I was trying to turn our normal relationship challenges into some kind of crisis. His attitude is starting to affect how I feel about our relationship overall. It's not just that he won't go to therapy, it's that he makes me feel bad for wanting to work on things and dismisses my concerns as weakness or overthinking. I feel like he'd rather just accept that we have communication problems than put in any effort to fix them. I love him and I want us to work, but I also know that we can't keep having the same arguments forever. I'm starting to wonder if his resistance to getting help is actually a sign that he doesn't want things to get better, or if he's just scared of what we might discover about ourselves or our relationship if we really examined it with professional guidance. That story is over. Someone who mocks your desire to improve your relationship and calls therapy a scam is telling you they're not willing to put in the work that healthy relationships require. His bad experiences as a teenager don't excuse dismissing your needs as an adult, and the fact that he'd rather accept dysfunction than seek solutions shows a fundamental incompatibility in how you approach problems. You can't fix communication issues with someone who refuses to communicate about fixing communication issues. Our next story involves someone who's starting to feel more like an ATM than a partner. My girlfriend keeps borrowing money. Posted by OP, this is getting really uncomfortable, and I don't know how to address it without seeming like a cheapskate. My girlfriend and I have been together for about 1.5 years, and she's gotten into this pattern of constantly asking me for money for various things, but she rarely pays me back. It started small and seemed reasonable at first. She'd ask me to cover dinner if she'd forgotten her wallet, or she'd need $20 for gas until her next paycheck. Normal stuff that happens in relationships where people help each other out. I never thought twice about it because I figured it would balance out over time. But now it's become this ongoing thing where she asks me for money multiple times a week. Last month alone, she asked me for money for groceries, her phone bill, a parking ticket, new work clothes, her share of a group gift for her friend's birthday, and car repairs. The amounts range from $30 to a few hundred, and it's starting to add up to more than I'm comfortable with. The issue isn't that I can't afford to help her, because I make decent money, and I'm generally pretty good with my finances. The problem is that she never pays me back unless I specifically ask for it. And even then she acts like I'm being unreasonable for bringing it up. A few weeks ago, I added up how much money she owed me, and it was over $800 going back about 4 months. When I mentioned this to her, she seemed genuinely surprised by the amount and said she hadn't realised it was that much. She promised to start paying me back, but then the next week she asked for more money for her electric bill and still hasn't paid me back anything from before. What makes it more frustrating is that she spends money on things that seem unnecessary while owing me money. Last week she asked me for $60 to help with groceries, but then, 2 days later, she was showing me new makeup she'd bought that cost more than that. When I pointed out the contradiction, she said the makeup was something she'd been saving up for, and that groceries were an unexpected expense. She also goes out with her friends fairly regularly, and never seems to have trouble paying for drinks or dinners when she's with them. But when we go out together, she'll ask if I can cover her share, because money is tight. I'm starting to feel like she sees me as her financial backup plan while she spends her own money on things she wants to do. The worst part is how she reacts when I hesitate to lend her money or ask about paying back previous loans. She gets defensive and says she can't believe I'm keeping track of money between us like we're business partners instead of people in love. She says it makes her feel like I don't trust her or that I think she's trying to take advantage of me. She's also started making comments about how she didn't realise I was so focused on money and that it's disappointing to see this side of me. She said her previous boyfriends never made her feel bad about needing help occasionally, and that she thought I was more generous than this. But it's not occasional anymore, and I don't think I'm being unreasonable by expecting her to pay me back when she borrows money. I help her out because I care about her and want to support her, but I'm starting to feel like she takes my willingness to help for granted. Last week, she asked me for money to fix her laptop for school, and when I said I needed her to pay back some of what she already owed me first, she accused me of holding money over her head and trying to control her. She said if I was going to be weird about money, then she'd rather struggle on her own than deal with my attitude about it. I don't want money to become a source of conflict in our relationship, but I also don't want to feel like I'm being used. I love her and I want to help when she's in a bind, but I need to know that she respects me enough to follow through on paying me back when she says she will. That story is over. This girl has turned you into her personal bank while making you feel guilty for expecting basic respect and accountability. The fact that she can afford makeup and nights out, but always needs your money for essentials shows she's prioritizing her wants over your financial boundaries. When someone makes you the bad guy for expecting them to keep their word about paying you back, they're manipulating you into funding their lifestyle without consequences. Let's move on to another story about someone whose partner's behaviour is making dining out an embarrassing experience. My boyfriend flirts with waitresses, posted by Laura. I'm starting to dread going out to eat with my boyfriend because of how he acts around female servers. And I don't know if I'm being overly sensitive or if this is actually as inappropriate as it feels to me. We've been together for almost 2 years, and this behaviour has gotten progressively worse over time. It started with him being overly friendly with waitresses in a way that seemed charming at first. He'd make jokes, ask personal questions about their day, and generally be more engaging than most customers. I thought it was sweet that he was making an effort to be kind to people in service jobs, and the servers usually seemed to appreciate the interaction. But over the past 6 months, it's escalated into what I can only describe as flirting. He compliments their appearance, makes suggestive comments about their uniforms or how they look, and finds excuses to touch their arm or hand when they're taking our order or bringing food. Last month, he told a waitress that her smile was the prettiest thing he'd seen all day, right in front of me. The way he looks at them makes me incredibly uncomfortable. He'll watch them walk away from our table, make comments about their figures, and sometimes even turn around to check them out when they're serving other tables. When I'm trying to have a conversation with him, he gets distracted every time our server walks by and loses track of what I was saying. He also asks for their names and uses them constantly throughout the meal, way more than necessary. Instead of saying, "Excuse me" or "Thank you," it's always "Thanks so much, Jessica," or "You're amazing, Brittany." He remembers details they mention about their lives and asks follow-up questions the next time they come to our table. It feels like he's trying to build some kind of personal connection with them. The worst part is how differently he treats male servers. When we have a male server, he's polite but straightforward. He doesn't ask personal questions, doesn't make jokes, and definitely doesn't compliment their appearance or find reasons to touch them. It's clear that his behaviour with female servers isn't just about being friendly to service workers. It's specifically about flirting with women. When I've tried to talk to him about it, he gets defensive and says he's just being nice to people who work hard for tips. He claims that being friendly and personable is how you get good service, and that I'm reading too much into normal social interaction. He says I'm being jealous and insecure over nothing. But it doesn't feel like nothing when I'm sitting across from him watching him light up and become animated in a way that he rarely is with me anymore. These waitresses get the charming, funny, attentive version of my boyfriend, while I get the distracted guy who's looking over my shoulder to see when she's coming back to our table. It's also embarrassing because I can tell the servers are sometimes uncomfortable with his attention. Some of them play along because they're working and have to be polite, but others clearly want to keep the interaction professional, and he doesn't pick up on those cues. I feel bad for them having to deal with his behaviour, and I feel humiliated sitting there watching it happen. Last week we went to a restaurant where the waitress was probably around 20 years old, and he spent the entire meal making comments about how mature and sophisticated she seemed for her age. He asked if she was in college, what she was studying, and told her she was going to be very successful because she was so smart and beautiful. I wanted to disappear under the table. When we left that restaurant, I told him that his behaviour was making me uncomfortable and that it felt disrespectful to both me and the servers. He said I was being ridiculous and that he was just encouraging a young person who was working hard. He accused me of trying to control his personality and said he didn't understand why I had a problem with him being kind to people. I've started suggesting we get takeout instead of dining in, or picking restaurants where I know they have male servers just to avoid dealing with this situation. But I shouldn't have to plan our meals around my boyfriend's inability to interact appropriately with women who are just trying to do their jobs. That story is over. This man is using dining out as an opportunity to hit on other women right in front of you, and then gaslighting you into thinking you're the problem for noticing. The fact that he only acts this way with female servers proves it's not about being friendly to service workers. It's about being inappropriate with women who can't tell him to stop because they're at work. You deserve a partner who saves his charm for you, not someone who makes every dinner date into a performance for other women. Our next story is about someone who's dealing with the kind of partner behaviour that would make any parent see red. My husband forgot our child's birthday, posted by Darren. I don't even know where to start with this because I'm still processing how something like this could even happen. My husband completely forgot our 7-year-old daughter's birthday last week, and I'm struggling to understand how someone can forget something so important. Emma had been talking about her birthday for weeks. She made a countdown calendar, told everyone at school about her party plans, and kept asking what presents Daddy was going to get her. She was so excited that she could barely sleep the night before, and she woke up at 6 a.m. asking if it was time to open presents yet. My husband left for work that morning like it was any other day. He didn't say happy birthday to Emma, didn't mention her party that afternoon, didn't ask if I needed help with anything. When Emma asked where Daddy's present was, I made up some excuse about him having a special surprise planned for later. I had been planning her party for a month. I'd invited her friends, decorated our backyard, ordered a custom cake with her favourite cartoon character, and bought all her presents. I'd been handling everything myself because my husband said he was swamped at work, but I figured he'd at least remember what day it was. The party was supposed to start at 2 p.m. By 1:30 I was setting up the last decorations, and Emma was getting dressed in her special birthday outfit. She kept asking when Daddy would be home, and whether he remembered it was her big day. I kept checking my phone to see if he'd texted, but there was nothing. 2 o'clock came and went. Emma's friends started arriving with their parents, and everyone kept asking where my husband was. I made excuses about him being stuck at work, but said he'd be there soon. Emma kept running to the window to look for his car, and I could see her getting more and more disappointed as time passed. By 3 o'clock I was furious. I called his phone multiple times, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted him asking where he was and reminding him about Emma's party, but he didn't respond. The other parents were starting to give me sympathetic looks, and I felt humiliated having to explain that her own father had apparently forgotten her birthday. Emma tried to put on a brave face, but I could tell she was heartbroken. She kept asking the other kids if their daddies ever forgot their birthdays, and when they said no, she got quiet and stopped participating in the party games. It broke my heart watching her try to have fun, while obviously wondering why her dad didn't think her special day was important enough to remember. He finally came home at 6:30 after all the guests had left and we'd finished cleaning up. Emma was in her room playing with her new toys, still in her party dress, but looking deflated. When he walked in, I asked him how his day was, and he started talking about some project at work like nothing had happened. When I asked him if he'd forgotten something important, he looked confused for a minute, and then his face went white. He started apologising profusely and saying he'd been so stressed with deadlines that he'd completely lost track of what day it was. He said he felt terrible and asked if there was anything he could do to make it up to Emma, but the damage was already done. Emma had spent her entire 7th birthday wondering why her daddy didn't care enough to remember or show up for her party. When he went upstairs to apologise to her, she just looked at him and asked why he forgot about her. He didn't have a good answer. He tried to make it up to her by taking her shopping the next day and buying her more presents, but she wasn't interested. She told him that what she really wanted was for him to remember that she was important. That cut him deeper than any anger from me could have. The thing that bothers me most is that this wasn't just a simple mistake. He forgot our child's birthday, missed her party, and didn't even realise it until I confronted him about it. It makes me wonder what other important moments he's going to miss because work apparently takes priority over everything else in our family. When I tried to talk to him about how this made me feel, he kept apologising and saying it would never happen again, but I don't know how to trust that when he was so completely checked out that he forgot one of the most important days of the year for our daughter. Emma keeps asking if Daddy will remember next year, and I honestly don't know what to tell her. That story is over. Missing your own child's birthday isn't just forgetting a date, it's failing as a parent in one of the most basic ways possible. The fact that he was completely oblivious until confronted shows how disconnected he is from his family's life. That little girl will remember this forever, and no amount of guilt shopping the next day can undo the damage of feeling forgotten by your own father. Work stress doesn't excuse missing the most important moments in your child's life. Moving on to our next story about someone whose partner's secretive behaviour is raising all kinds of red flags. My girlfriend hides her phone. Posted by OP. I'm starting to feel like I'm going crazy, but I think my girlfriend might be hiding something from me based on how she's been acting with her phone lately. We've been together for about 1.5 years, and this behaviour started maybe 3 months ago, but it's gotten progressively worse. She used to leave her phone lying around casually, face up on tables or counters, and she'd answer texts in front of me without any weird behaviour. If I was sitting next to her and a message came through, she might even show me funny memes or tell me what her friends were saying. It all felt very normal and open. But now she's constantly flipping her phone face down whenever I'm around. If we're watching TV together and her phone buzzes, she'll quickly grab it and turn it over so I can't see the screen. When she gets up to go to the bathroom or kitchen, she takes her phone with her every single time, even if she's just gone for 2 minutes. The most obvious change is how she acts when she's texting. She used to type messages normally, but now she angles her phone away from me and hunches over it like she's guarding state secrets. If I walk into the room while she's texting, she immediately closes whatever app she was using and puts the phone down like she wasn't doing anything. Last week I came home from work early and found her on the couch texting someone. The moment she heard my key in the door, she shoved her phone under a pillow and pretended to be watching television. When I asked who she was talking to, she said she wasn't texting anyone and seemed genuinely nervous about the question. She's also started keeping her phone on silent all the time, which she never used to do. I only notice when messages come through because the screen lights up briefly before she flips it over. Sometimes I'll see multiple notifications pop up in quick succession, like she's having an active conversation with someone, but she acts like nothing is happening. The bathroom thing is what really bothers me. She takes her phone with her every single time now, even for quick trips, and she's in there much longer than she used to be. I can hear her typing through the door, and when she comes out, she's always in a better mood, like whatever conversation she was having made her happy. When we're out together, she keeps her phone in her purse instead of on the table like she used to. If it buzzes while we're eating or talking, she doesn't check it until she thinks I'm not paying attention. A few times I've seen her smile at messages and then quickly put the phone away when she notices me watching. I tried to bring this up casually by asking if everything was okay, because she seemed more attached to her phone lately. She got defensive immediately and said she wasn't acting any differently. She accused me of being paranoid and monitoring her phone usage, which made me feel like I was the one doing something wrong. But I'm not trying to spy on her or control who she talks to. I just notice when someone's behaviour changes dramatically, and the secrecy feels intentional. If she was just texting her mum or her girlfriends, why would she need to hide it from me? The worst part is that she started accusing me of being clingy or jealous when I ask simple questions about her day or who she's been talking to. She says I never used to question her about these things, which is true, but she never used to be so secretive about them either. Last night I woke up around 3 in the morning and noticed she wasn't in bed. I found her in the living room texting someone, and when she saw me, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. She said she couldn't sleep and was just scrolling social media, but she was clearly typing messages to someone specific. I asked her directly if there was someone else, and she got angry and said she couldn't believe I would accuse her of cheating. She said if I didn't trust her, then maybe we needed to reevaluate our relationship. But she never actually answered the question, and she didn't explain why her phone behaviour had changed so dramatically. I love her and I want to trust her, but the secrecy is making it impossible. I feel like she's living a double life that I'm not allowed to be part of, and every time I try to address it, she makes me feel like I'm being unreasonable for noticing obvious changes in her behaviour. That story is over. When someone goes from completely open with their phone to treating it like classified information, they're usually hiding something they know you wouldn't like. The defensive accusations about being controlling are classic deflection tactics to make you stop asking questions. Innocent people don't act guilty, and someone who's not cheating doesn't suddenly need to guard their phone like a national security asset. Trust your instincts on this one. Let's move on to a story about someone whose partner refuses to take a pretty standard relationship step. My fiance refuses to wear a wedding ring. Posted by Ethan. I'm getting married in 4 months, and I'm starting to have serious doubts because of my fiance's attitude towards something that should be simple and straightforward. He absolutely refuses to wear a wedding ring after we get married, and his reasons keep changing every time I bring it up. When we first got engaged, I assumed we'd both wear wedding rings, because that's just what married people do. I started looking at men's wedding bands online and showing him different styles to see what he liked. His first response was that he's not really a jewellery person and doesn't like wearing rings because they feel uncomfortable on his fingers. I understood that some people aren't used to wearing jewellery, so I suggested we could find something simple and lightweight that he could get used to gradually. I even offered to pay for it myself, since he seemed concerned about the cost. But then he changed his reason and said he works with his hands and wearing a ring could be dangerous, or get caught on equipment. The problem is that he works in an office, doing computer programming. He's never around heavy machinery or dangerous equipment that would make wearing a ring unsafe. When I pointed this out, he said he might change careers someday and wanted to keep his options open, which seemed like a pretty weak excuse. Over the past few months, he's come up with new reasons every time the topic comes up. He said that wedding rings are just a marketing scam by jewellery companies, that wearing one would give him a rash because he has sensitive skin, and that rings are a symbol of ownership that goes against his values about personal freedom. Last month he told me that he doesn't need a piece of metal to prove he's committed to me, and that our love should be strong enough without external symbols. He said if I really trusted him, I wouldn't need him to wear a ring to feel secure in our relationship. That one hurt because it made me feel like I was being insecure for wanting something that's completely normal. The thing that bothers me most is how adamant he is about this. It's not like he's hesitant or needs time to get used to the idea. He's completely against it and acts like I'm being unreasonable for expecting it. He's made it clear that he will not wear a wedding ring under any circumstances, and he doesn't understand why it's important to me. When I try to explain that wearing wedding rings is a way of publicly showing that we're married and committed to each other, he says that's old-fashioned thinking and that people should be able to tell we're married by how we act together. He says visible symbols of marriage are for people who need external validation of their relationship status. But it's not about validation for me. It's about tradition and showing the world that we chose each other. I want people to know that he's my husband and that I'm his wife. I want us both to have that symbol of our commitment that we can look at every day and remember the promises we made to each other. I've started noticing how other couples handle this, and every married couple I know wears wedding rings, except for people who have medical reasons or jobs that genuinely make it unsafe. Even my friend, who's a mechanic, wears his ring on a chain around his neck when he's working. It's not an unreasonable expectation. His friends have started making jokes about how he's going to be a married man who looks single, and instead of defending our decision or explaining his position, he seems to enjoy the implication that he'll still appear available. That makes me uncomfortable because it suggests he likes the idea of not looking married. When I brought up how his refusal makes me feel, he said I was trying to change him and that he thought I accepted him as he was. He said if wearing a ring was so important to me, maybe I should find someone else who cares more about appearances than substance. That felt like emotional blackmail and made me question whether I was being ridiculous. But I don't think wanting your spouse to wear a wedding ring is asking too much. It's not about changing who he is, it's about participating in a tradition that's meaningful to me and to our marriage. I feel like he's dismissing something that's important to me without any real consideration for how his refusal affects me. I'm starting to wonder if his resistance to wearing a wedding ring is actually resistance to being married at all. If he's this opposed to one of the most basic symbols of marriage, how is he going to handle the bigger commitments that come with being someone's husband? That story is over. A man who refuses to wear a wedding ring but can't give you a consistent reason why is telling you something important about his commitment level. The constantly changing excuses and the enjoyment of appearing single are massive red flags that he wants to keep his options open. Someone who truly wants to be married doesn't fight this hard against one of the most basic symbols of marriage. You're not asking him to change who he is. You're asking him to acknowledge what you are to each other. Our next story involves someone whose partner seems determined to isolate them from their social circle. My partner doesn't like my friends, posted by Hannah. I'm in a really difficult position because my boyfriend of 8 months has made it clear that he doesn't like my friends, and it's starting to affect all of my relationships. Every time we get invited to hang out with my friend group, he finds reasons why we can't go, and it's getting harder to maintain these friendships. I have a close group of friends that I've known since college. We try to get together at least once a month for dinner, game nights, or just casual hangouts. These people have been part of my life for years, and they've supported me through breakups, job changes, and family problems. They're genuinely good people who I care about deeply. When I first started dating my boyfriend, I was excited to introduce him to my friends because I wanted him to get to know the people who matter to me. The first few times we all hung out together, he was polite but quiet. He didn't really engage in conversations and seemed uncomfortable the entire time. I figured he was just shy around new people and would warm up eventually. But instead of getting more comfortable with them, he started making excuses not to join us when we had plans. He'd say he was tired from work, had other commitments, or wasn't feeling social. At first I went to these gatherings without him, but he started making comments about how I was choosing my friends over spending time with him. He began criticizing my friends individually, pointing out things he didn't like about their personalities or behavior. He said, "Sarah talks too much and dominates conversations." He thinks Mike is immature because he still plays video games. He doesn't like Jessica because she's too loud and attention-seeking. He's found something wrong with every single person in my friend group. According to him, my friends are bad influences who encourage me to drink too much and stay out too late. He says they're all single and jealous of our relationship, so they try to cause problems between us. He claims they don't respect our relationship because they still invite me to do things without automatically including him. The criticism has gotten more specific and personal over time. He says my friends are shallow and only care about gossip and drama. He thinks they're immature for their age, and that I'm outgrowing them as I become more serious about my relationship with him. He suggested that maybe it's time for me to find more mature friends who are in committed relationships, like we are. Last month, when my friend group planned a weekend trip to the beach, he got upset that I wanted to go. He said it was weird that I wanted to vacation with other people when we could spend that time together as a couple. He made me feel guilty about leaving him alone for the weekend, so I ended up cancelling my plans with my friends to stay home with him. But then he didn't even want to do anything special that weekend. We just stayed home and watched movies, and he spent most of the time on his phone. I realised I'd given up a fun trip with my friends for a boring weekend where he wasn't even paying attention to me. My friends have started commenting on how they never see me anymore and asking if everything is okay in my relationship. When I make plans with them, he gets moody and passive-aggressive until I cancel or cut the evening short to come home to him. I feel like I'm constantly choosing between keeping him happy and maintaining my friendships. The worst part is that he's perfectly fine with his own friends and expects me to hang out with them regularly. We see his friends at least twice a week, and he never questions whether I like them or whether spending time with them takes away from our relationship. But when it comes to my friends, suddenly every social activity is a threat to our couple time. When I try to talk to him about this double standard, he says his friends are different because they're more mature and they respect our relationship. He claims my friends are toxic and that a good boyfriend should protect his girlfriend from negative influences. He says if I really cared about our future together, I'd be willing to distance myself from people who don't support us. I'm starting to feel isolated and resentful. I've been cancelling plans so often that my friends have stopped inviting me to things, and I don't blame them. I feel like I'm losing important relationships because of his jealousy and control issues, but he makes me feel selfish for wanting to maintain friendships outside of our relationship. That story is over. Someone who systematically isolates you from your support system while expecting you to embrace their friends is showing classic controlling behaviour. The fact that he's found something wrong with every single one of your friends isn't about their personalities, it's about his need to be your only source of social connection. Healthy partners encourage your friendships because they want you to be happy, not because they want to control who gets access to you. The double standard with his own friends shows this isn't about couple time, it's about power. Our next story comes from someone whose partner seems to have forgotten that marriage is supposed to be a partnership. My wife gets angry when I work overtime. Posted by OP. I'm really struggling to understand what's happening in my marriage lately, and I honestly don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if my wife's expectations are unreasonable. We've been married for 5 years, and this issue has been building up over the past year to the point where we're fighting about it almost weekly. I work in construction management, and sometimes projects require me to put in extra hours to meet deadlines or handle unexpected problems. It's not like I'm choosing to work late for fun, but when there's a crisis on a job site or we're behind schedule, I have to be there to make sure things get done properly. That's just the nature of my job and the responsibility that comes with my position. My wife knew what I did for work when we got married. She understood that construction schedules can be unpredictable and that sometimes I'd need to work longer days during busy periods. For the first few years of our marriage, She was supportive and understanding when I had to stay late or work weekends to finish projects. But over the past year, every time I tell her I need to work overtime, she gets angry and accuses me of choosing work over our family. Last week, I had to stay late 3 days in a row because we were dealing with a major problem with our foundation work that could have shut down the entire project if we didn't fix it immediately. By the third day, she was furious and said I was using work as an excuse to avoid being home. When I try to explain that these aren't optional hours and that my job requires me to be there when problems arise, she says I'm making excuses and that other husbands manage to have normal schedules. She points to her friends' husbands who work 9 to 5 office jobs and says they're home for dinner every night, so there's no reason I can't do the same. But that's not how construction works. We don't get to stop in the middle of pouring concrete just because it's 5 o'clock. If there's a safety issue or a deadline we have to meet, we stay until it's handled. That's what I signed up for when I took this job, and it's what allows me to provide a good living for our family. She started making comments about how I must not want to be home since I always find reasons to stay at work. She says if I really cared about our marriage, I'd find a job with more predictable hours. When I point out that my salary supports our lifestyle and that changing careers would mean a significant pay cut, she says money isn't everything and that she'd rather have less money and more time together. But it's easy to say money doesn't matter when you're not the one responsible for paying the mortgage, car payments, and all our other expenses. I work hard because I want to provide for our family and give us financial security. I'm not working overtime for my own entertainment. I'm doing it because it's necessary for our livelihood. The situation has gotten worse because she started planning things on nights when I have to work late, then getting upset when I can't participate. Last month, she invited her parents over for dinner on a night when I'd already told her I had to stay late to finish a project. When I couldn't make it home in time, she was embarrassed in front of her parents and blamed me for making her look bad. She's also started making passive-aggressive comments about how I'm never around and how she feels like a single woman living alone. When I am home, she brings up all the things that happened while I was at work that I missed, making me feel guilty for not being there. It's like she wants me to feel bad about working to support our family. Last week, she suggested I should look for a different job with better hours, even if it means taking a pay cut. When I asked her what expenses we'd cut to make up for the lost income, she couldn't give me a specific answer. She just said we'd figure it out, and that having me home was more important than having extra money. But we're not talking about extra money. We're talking about the money we need to maintain our current lifestyle, pay our bills, and save for the future. I don't understand how she expects me to just walk away from a career I've built over 15 years for a job that might not even exist. The worst part is that she acts like I'm choosing work over her, when really I'm choosing to be responsible about our financial future. I love my wife, and I want to spend time with her, but I also need to fulfill my obligations at work. I feel like she's putting me in an impossible position where I'm either failing as a husband or failing as a provider. When I try to talk to her about finding a balance, she says the balance is already off because work always comes first. She says other wives don't have to compete with their husband's job for attention and that I need to set better boundaries with my employer. But she doesn't understand that in my industry, if you're not willing to put in the extra effort when it's needed, you'll be replaced by someone who will. I'm starting to feel like nothing I do is good enough. When I work the hours necessary to do my job well, I'm a bad husband. But if I didn't work those hours, and we couldn't afford our lifestyle, I'd probably be a bad provider. I don't know how to make her understand that my work schedule isn't a choice I'm making against our marriage. It's a requirement of the career that supports our life together. That story is over. This woman married a construction manager and then acts shocked that construction doesn't follow office hours. The fact that she can't name specific expenses to cut when she suggests taking a pay cut shows she's not thinking practically about their finances. She's basically asking him to choose between being a responsible provider and being home for dinner every night. which isn't fair when his overtime directly benefits their quality of life. Marriage means supporting each other's careers, not demanding your partner sabotage their job to accommodate your schedule. Let's move on to our next story about someone whose partner has turned every disagreement into a battle they can never win. My boyfriend refuses to apologize, posted by Brian. I need some perspective on this because I'm starting to feel like I'm losing my mind in this relationship. My boyfriend and I have been together for about a year and a half, and I've realized that he has never once apologized to me for anything, even when he's clearly in the wrong. It's not that we never fight or have disagreements, because we definitely do, but no matter what the issue is or how obviously he's messed up, he will never admit fault or say he's sorry. Instead, he finds ways to turn every argument around so that somehow I end up being the one who him needs to apologize to. Last month he promised to pick me up from the airport when I was coming back from visiting my sister. I texted him my flight information a week ahead of time, reminded him the day before, and even sent him a message when I landed letting him know I was waiting for him. An hour later, I was still standing at the pickup area, calling his phone with no answer. I finally had to take an expensive Uber home, and when I got there, he was playing video games with his headphones on. He said he'd forgotten about picking me up and had lost track of time. When I told him I was hurt that he'd forgotten something so important and left me stranded at the airport, he got defensive. Instead of apologizing, he said I should have called an Uber immediately, instead of waiting around for an hour. He said I was being dramatic about the situation and that everyone forgets things sometimes. He made it seem like I was overreacting for being upset about being abandoned at the airport, and somehow, by the end of the conversation, I was apologizing to him for raising my voice. This pattern happens with everything. A few weeks ago, he was supposed to meet me for dinner at 7, but he showed up at 8:30 without calling to let me know he was running late. I'd been sitting at the restaurant by myself for an hour and a half, and I was embarrassed because the servers kept asking if I wanted to order or if I was still waiting for someone. When he finally arrived, he said he'd gotten caught up watching a game with his friends and hadn't realised how late it was. Instead of apologising for keeping me waiting, he said I should have just ordered without him and that I was being too rigid about timing. He said spontaneous people like him shouldn't be expected to live by strict schedules and that I needed to be more flexible. By the end of that conversation, I was somehow apologising for being upset about his lateness and promising to be more understanding about his time management issues. Looking back, I can't believe I let him flip that situation around, but in the moment, he made me feel like I was being unreasonable for expecting him to show up when he said he would. The worst incident happened 2 months ago when we were at his friend's birthday party. He'd been drinking and he started flirting with one of the other guests right in front of me. He was complimenting her dress, asking about her job, and even touched her arm while they were talking. I could see other people at the party noticing and feeling uncomfortable for me. When I pulled him aside and told him his behaviour was inappropriate, he said I was being jealous and possessive. He claimed he was just being friendly and that I was reading too much into normal social interaction. He said I was embarrassing him by acting insecure in front of his friends, and that my jealousy was becoming a problem in our relationship. Instead of acknowledging that he'd been flirting with another woman, he made the entire issue about my supposed trust issues and insecurity. He said if I really loved him, I wouldn't question his interactions with other people. By the time we got home that night, I was apologising for causing a scene and promising to work on my jealousy. This happens with small things too. If he breaks something of mine, it's because I left it in a place where it could easily be broken. If he forgets to do something he promised, it's because I didn't remind him enough times. If he says something hurtful, it's because I'm too sensitive and need to learn to take a joke. Last week, I tried to address this pattern directly. I told him that I'd noticed he never apologises for anything, and that it makes me feel like he doesn't respect me enough to admit when he's wrong. His response was to tell me that I apologise too much and that I'm always looking for reasons to be upset with him. He said healthy relationships don't require constant apologies, and that I need to learn to let things go instead of holding grudges. He claimed that my need for apologies was actually a sign of my own insecurity, and that confident people don't need validation through verbal acknowledgements of faults. I'm starting to feel like I'm going crazy because he makes everything sound so logical when he explains it. He has this way of turning every situation around so that my reaction becomes the problem, not whatever he did to cause the reaction in the first place. I find myself questioning whether I really am too sensitive or demanding, but I don't think wanting an apology when someone hurts you is unreasonable. I don't think expecting your boyfriend to show up when he says he will, or pick you up from the airport when he promises, is asking too much. I feel like I'm constantly making excuses for his behaviour and apologising for my own feelings. My friends have started commenting on how different I seem since I've been with him. They say I second-guess myself more and seem less confident than I used to be. When I tell them about our arguments, they're shocked that he never apologises for anything, and that I always end up being the one saying, sorry. I'm starting to wonder if this is just his personality, or if this is actually emotional manipulation. Is it normal for someone to never apologise in a relationship? Or should I be more concerned about what this pattern says about how he views me and our relationship together? That story is over. This man has turned gaslighting into an art form, and he's so good at it that he's convinced you that wanting basic respect and accountability makes you needy. Someone who can never admit fault and always finds a way to make you the villain isn't mature or confident, they're manipulative. The fact that your friends have noticed changes in your personality shows how toxic this dynamic has become. Healthy relationships require both people to take responsibility when they mess up, not one person constantly rewriting reality to avoid ever being wrong. Moving on to another story about someone whose past mistakes have become a weapon against them. My girlfriend keeps bringing up my past, posted by Lily. I'm at the point where I'm considering ending my relationship because I can't handle how my girlfriend constantly brings up mistakes I made in the past. We've been together for 2 years, and instead of moving forward and building trust, she uses old issues as ammunition in every single argument we have. About a year ago, I made a mistake that hurt her deeply. I'd been messaging with an ex-girlfriend who had reached out to me on social media. It wasn't anything physical, but the conversations were inappropriate and crossed boundaries that I shouldn't have crossed in a committed relationship. When my girlfriend found out, she was devastated, and I completely understood why. I immediately cut off all contact with my ex, deleted her from all my social media accounts, and was completely transparent about what had happened. I apologised sincerely, took full responsibility for my actions, and promised it would never happen again. I've kept that promise and haven't had any contact with my ex or anyone else inappropriate since then. For a few months after that incident, I understood that my girlfriend needed time to rebuild trust. I was patient when she asked to see my phone. I answered all her questions honestly, and I tried to prove through my actions that I was committed to making things right. I thought we were moving forward and healing together, but instead of getting better over time, it's gotten worse. Now every time we have any kind of disagreement about anything, she brings up what happened with my ex. If I'm running late from work, she says I'm probably messaging other women like I did before. If I want to hang out with friends, she says I can't be trusted around other people because of my past behaviour. Last week we got into an argument because I forgot to pick up groceries on my way home from work. Instead of just being annoyed about the groceries, she said my forgetfulness proved that I don't prioritise our relationship, just like when I chose to message my ex instead of focusing on us. She somehow connected forgetting milk and bread to cheating on her a year ago. The worst part is that she brings it up even when we're not fighting. If we're watching a movie and there's a storyline about infidelity, she'll make comments about how she knows what that feels like because of what I did to her. If we see a happy couple at a restaurant, she'll say she wishes she could trust someone the way that woman trusts her partner. I've tried to talk to her about this pattern, and she says that I don't get to decide when she should be over something that hurt her so deeply. She says I'm being selfish by wanting her to just forget what happened and move on. She claims that if I really understood how much I hurt her, I wouldn't be asking her to stop bringing it up. But I'm not asking her to forget what happened or pretend it never occurred. I'm asking her to stop using it as a weapon against me in situations that have nothing to do with that mistake. I'm asking her to either work with me to rebuild our relationship or admit that she can't move past what happened so we can both find peace. She started bringing it up in front of other people, which is humiliating and unfair. Last month at her friend's birthday party, someone made a joke about men being untrustworthy, and she said she could definitely relate to that because of what I'd put her through. Everyone got uncomfortable, and I felt like she was publicly shaming me for something we should be working through privately. When I told her later that I didn't appreciate her discussing our private relationship issues in front of her friends, she said she had every right to talk about her experiences and that I was trying to silence her. She said I was more concerned about my reputation than about the pain I'd caused her. I understand that what I did was wrong and that it hurt her deeply. I understand that rebuilding trust takes time and that she has every right to be cautious about trusting me completely. But I don't understand how we're supposed to move forward if every mistake I make, no matter how small, gets connected back to the worst thing I've ever done in our relationship. I feel like I'm being held prisoner by my past mistake. I can't have a normal disagreement with her about anything because it always becomes about how I'm untrustworthy and how she can't rely on me. I can't make any small error without it being evidence that I haven't really changed and that she was right not to trust me. It's gotten to the point where I'm afraid to disagree with her about anything because I know she'll bring up my past mistake to shut down the conversation. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells constantly, trying not to give her any reason to remind me of what I did wrong a year ago. I want to fix our relationship and prove that I've changed, but I don't know how to do that when she won't let me move forward. I feel like she wants me to spend the rest of our relationship paying for one mistake, and I don't know if that's fair to either of us. Last night, I asked her directly if she thought she could ever truly forgive me and trust me again. She said she didn't know, and that maybe some things are too big to get over completely. I'm starting to think that might be true, and that staying together is just prolonging both of our pain. That story is over. While what he did was definitely wrong, and she has every right to be hurt, using past mistakes as a constant weapon isn't healing, it's punishment. If someone can't move forward from something that happened a year ago, despite genuine efforts to rebuild trust, then they probably shouldn't be in that relationship anymore. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but it does mean not using old wounds to win every new argument. Both of them deserve either a fresh start together or the chance to find happiness with people who don't make them relive their worst moments repeatedly. Our next story is about someone whose partner has found a way to be physically present but emotionally absent. My husband is addicted to his phone, posted by Anonymous. I feel like I'm married to a stranger because my husband spends more time looking at his phone screen than he does looking at me. This has become such a serious problem that I'm starting to question whether our marriage can survive his complete addiction to scrolling through social media and news apps. We've been married for 6 years, and this behaviour has gotten progressively worse over the past 2 years. It started gradually, with him checking his phone more frequently during conversations, but now he's literally on his phone from the moment he wakes up until the moment he falls asleep. Even when we're having what should be intimate or important conversations, he's scrolling through something while pretending to listen to me. Last week, I was trying to tell him about a problem I was having at work that was really stressing me out. I needed his support and advice, but while I was talking, he was scrolling through Twitter and occasionally making non-committal sounds like he was paying attention. When I finished explaining the situation and asked what he thought I should do, he had to ask me to repeat the entire story because he hadn't heard a word I said. This happens constantly. We'll be sitting at dinner together, and instead of talking about our days or connecting with each other, he's reading articles or watching videos with the sound on. When I ask him to put the phone away during meals, he says he's just checking something quickly, but then he continues scrolling for the entire meal. We eat in silence while he stares at his screen. Even when we're watching television together, which used to be our time to relax and be close, he's on his phone the entire time. He'll laugh at something on his screen that has nothing to do with what we're watching, or he'll show me memes that interrupt whatever show we're trying to enjoy. It's like he can't focus on one thing at a time anymore. The bedroom situation has become completely unacceptable. He brings his phone to bed every night and scrolls through social media while I'm trying to talk to him or be intimate with him. Even during physical intimacy, I've caught him glancing at his phone if it buzzes with notifications. It makes me feel like I'm competing with his phone for his attention, and the phone is winning. When I try to talk to him about this addiction, he gets defensive and says everyone uses their phone and that I'm being dramatic. He claims he's just staying informed about current events and keeping up with friends, but he's not actually engaging with anyone or learning anything meaningful. He's just mindlessly scrolling through the same apps over and over again. I've started timing how much he uses his phone when we're together, and it's shocking. During a 2-hour period last Sunday, when we were supposed to be spending quality time together, he was on his phone for over an hour and a half. He'd put it down for a few minutes, then pick it back up to check something, then get sucked into scrolling for 20 or 30 minutes at a time. He's missing important moments because he's too distracted by his phone to be present. Last month, when we were at his nephew's birthday party, he spent most of the time sitting in a corner looking at his phone instead of playing with the kids or talking to family members. His sister-in-law asked me if everything was okay because he seemed so disconnected from what was happening around him. The most frustrating part is that he doesn't seem to realise how his phone addiction is affecting our relationship. When I tell him I feel ignored and unimportant, he says I'm being needy and that he's allowed to relax by looking at his phone. He acts like my need for his attention is unreasonable instead of understanding that I just want to feel like his wife matters more than whatever random content he's consuming. I've suggested we try phone-free times, like during meals or before bed, but he says that's controlling and that he doesn't want to live by arbitrary rules about when he can use his own phone. He says if I need constant attention, that's my problem to work on, not his problem to accommodate. But this isn't about needing constant attention. It's about wanting my husband to be present when we're together. I want to have conversations without competing with his phone for his focus. I want to feel like he's actually listening when I talk to him instead of just waiting for me to stop talking so he can go back to scrolling. I've started feeling incredibly lonely in my own marriage. We can be sitting right next to each other, but I feel like I'm completely alone because he's not really there with me. He's mentally and emotionally somewhere else, absorbed in whatever digital content is more interesting to him than his actual life. Last night, I asked him if he realised that we hadn't had a real conversation in weeks because he's always distracted by his phone. He said we talk all the time, but when I asked him to tell me one thing I'd shared with him recently, he couldn't think of anything. He couldn't remember any of the conversations we'd had because he hadn't actually been listening to any of them. That story is over. This man has traded his marriage for a scrolling addiction and doesn't even realise he's doing it. The fact that he can't remember a single thing she's told him recently shows just how checked out he's become from his own life. Phone addiction is real and it's destroying relationships, but you can't force someone to choose reality over their screen. She's basically become a widow to social media, and that's not a marriage anymore. Moving to our next story about someone whose partner thinks independence is a threat. My partner won't let me travel alone. Posted by James. I'm feeling suffocated in my relationship because my girlfriend refuses to let me take any trips by myself, and I'm starting to realise that this might be a much bigger problem than just travel preferences. We've been together for almost 2 years, and her reaction to my desire for occasional solo travel has revealed some concerning controlling behaviour. I've always been someone who enjoys travelling, and before I met her, I would take solo trips a few times a year to visit friends in other cities, explore new places, or just have some time to recharge and think. It's never been about escaping my relationship or doing anything inappropriate. It's just about maintaining my independence and having experiences that help me grow as a person. Last month, my college roommate invited me to visit him in Denver for a long weekend. He was celebrating a job promotion and wanted me to come out for a guys' trip with a few other friends from school. I was excited about the opportunity to reconnect with people I hadn't seen in a while and to visit a city I'd never been to before. When I told my girlfriend about the trip, her reaction was completely over the top. She immediately started asking why she wasn't invited, even though I explained it was specifically a reunion with my college friends who she'd never met. When I said it was going to be a guys' trip, she said it was suspicious that I wanted to travel without her and asked what I was planning to do that I couldn't do with her there. She started interrogating me about every detail of the trip: who exactly was going, where we were staying, what we were planning to do each day, and why it was so important that she not be included. She acted like my desire to spend time with my friends without her was evidence that I was planning to cheat or that I was unhappy in our relationship. When I tried to explain that healthy relationships require some independence and that it's normal for people to occasionally do things without their partners, she said that committed couples should want to do everything together. She claimed that if I really loved her, I wouldn't want to go anywhere without her, and that solo travel was something single people do, not people in serious relationships. She started crying and saying that she felt insecure about me traveling without her because she wouldn't know what I was doing or who I was with. She said she'd worry the entire time and wouldn't be able to sleep or enjoy her own weekend. She made it sound like me taking a 3-day trip to see friends would traumatize her emotionally. I tried to compromise by offering to check in with her regularly, send photos of what I was doing, and even video call her each night before bed. But she said that wasn't enough and that the only way she'd feel comfortable was if she came with me or if I didn't go at all. She said real partners don't put their individual desires above their relationship's harmony. The pressure became intense over the next few days. She would bring up the trip constantly, asking me to cancel it and questioning why I was being so stubborn about something that was obviously hurting her. She said if the situation were reversed, she would never choose a trip with friends over making me feel secure and loved. She started making passive-aggressive comments about how some boyfriends prioritize their relationships while others prioritize their freedom. She'd sigh dramatically whenever I was on the phone with my friends making plans, and she began questioning every other aspect of my social life. Suddenly, my weekly basketball games with co-workers became suspicious, and my occasional drinks with friends after work were evidence that I valued other people more than her. When I finally put my foot down and said I was going on the trip regardless of her objections, she threatened to break up with me. She said she couldn't be with someone who would choose to hurt her feelings just to hang out with his friends. She claimed that my insistence on going proved that I wasn't ready for a committed relationship. The night before I was supposed to leave, she had what I can only describe as a complete breakdown. She was crying, hyperventilating, and saying she was terrified that something would happen to me or that I would realize I didn't want to be with her anymore. She begged me not to go and said she'd never been so scared about anything in her life. That story ends there. This woman has turned a 3-day trip into an emotional hostage situation, and the manipulation is suffocating. Healthy relationships survive weekend apart, but insecure control freaks can't handle their partner having any experiences without them. The breakdown performance right before he leaves shows this isn't about love, it's about ownership. Someone who threatens to break up with you for maintaining basic friendships and independence isn't relationship material. Whether you're dealing with partners who won't commit, friends who won't respect boundaries, or family members who think your wallet belongs to them, at least you know you're not alone in navigating the absolute chaos that modern relationships can become. If these stories taught us anything, it's that communication, respect, and basic human decency shouldn't be too much to ask for in any relationship. But somehow, some people missed that memo entirely. If you loved this batch of Reddit stories, consider leaving a like on the video to show that you enjoyed it. It goes a long way. Thank you for listening in tonight, and I will see you again tomorrow. Take care.